Hey guys, I'm Urizi. This story is all about what if Naruto found out about the Uzumaki clan and was a prodigy. A small twist of fate made him aware of his heritage, unsealing the legacies his parents left behind. Graduating from the academy at age 7, he's well on his way. He found a kindred spirit in Uchiha Itachi, and his cousin Shisui's along for the ride. They're on the path to unsealing the legacy left by their ancestors, both the dark and the light. Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video, and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 20, 20th Legacy. Kurenai felt sorry for the Jinchuriki, just that and no more. Sure, her father was killed in the line of duty that night, and she still felt hints of hidden pain when recalling the last time she saw him. But she was grateful, unlike the fools in Konoha who couldn't see Uzumaki Naruto as a human first, a comrade second and a Jinchuriki last. When she saw the young Jinchuriki with his Uchiha teammates, Kurenai could faintly guess why they were with him. She didn't think they were using him though. She had heard whispers of the Uchiha being responsible for the Kyuubi attack, but she knew it was unlikely to be true. She had seen the Uchiha police force guiding civilians to shelter that night. The men had protected the fleeing civilians with their lives, not hesitating to throw themselves at pieces of flying debris if it could save even a single soul. The Uchihas were a tight-knit clan. They wouldn't let their clansmen die if they truly staged the attack. So that left one alternative: they were in his team to keep him, and his tenant, in line. Such was the life of Jinchuriki, involuntary jailers who spend their days shouldering burdens that shouldn't be theirs to bear, all while being imprisoned by the very people they are forced to protect. He was just 9 years old, a chunin at 9 during peaceful times. Even Kakashi was only promoted to chunin because of the war. Even clan children, aside from the main family, had the right to choose between being a civilian or shinobi. This boy, however, had that right taken from him the night he was forcibly deemed a Jinchuriki. Still, does the boy have it in him? The skill of a chunin? She could tell that other than Iwashi-san, not a single chunin here was sure of Naruto's skill. Whoosh. Clank. With a single hit, any doubt Kurenai had for the kid's strength was knocked straight out of her. She had tried to sneak behind the boy with her favorite genjutsu and aimed to knock him out of the game, but he quickly noticed the genjutsu, but instead of disturbing his chakra flow like normal shinobi would, he unleashed a large wave of chakra with enough force to push her 10 feet away. Then, before she could recover, he closed the distance in a flash, their kunais meeting in a series of consecutive sparks. Kurenai gritted her teeth. What strength! It was unnerving to see those warm blue eyes shift to a colder steel-like shade. Aba silently appeared not far behind him, and his eyes shifted slightly. He's a censor. Without a warning, a chain of chakra shot up from his back and Aba was forced to back away, just narrowly avoiding a whip to the face, but Aba was unaware that he was being led straight to Uchiha Shisui. The Uchiha, however, didn't move from his perch on the tree. Sharingan spinning lazily, Aba suddenly collapsed on the ground, desperately clutching his head to stave off ripples of pain. Aba! Kurenai cried. Then, suddenly she felt a light tap on her neck and everything went dark. When she woke up, she was awakened to the sight of her teammates groaning while vigorously rubbing their heads. Iwashi was shrugging while the Katetsu Izumo combo stood with a look of pure confusion. Kurenai guessed they were also victims of Shisui's, or perhaps Itachi's, genjutsu. She sighed wearily. Kurenai prided herself as an expert in genjutsu, but compared to Uchiha Shisui, nicknamed the Shinkaru, she was hopelessly outclassed. Still, Shisui made a peace sign at her, grinning widely. I admire his skill, but he is so annoying. Clenching her fist, Kurenai returned his grin with a strained smile. Looking at Shisui's innocuous smile, Itachi shook his head exasperatedly while Uzumaki Naruto. The boy was holding onto her team's flag. As Kurenai looked for her own teammates, she couldn't help but notice Iwashi with a faraway look she couldn't quite comprehend. Naruto looked like a child for once, twirling the flag idly as if he couldn't decide what to do with them. Katetsu, one of the chunin, approached the Jinchuriki. Oh yeah, about the Gajyojujika shuriken I used, why did it fall apart when you guys targeted the center? The blonde perked up. That, since there isn't a hole for us to place our index fingers, we had to compensate by making the layer of metal thinner and curved in at the center. He laughed sheepishly, so when pierced with a chakra-enhanced weapon of the opposing nature, the stabilizing layer kicked in. It has that kind of weakness. Izumo whistled. Still, can it even be called a weakness? He pointed at the center part of his shuriken. It's so small and each projectile would be moving at high speeds. While it's hard to dodge the elemental attack, it's still easier than aiming at such a small target. Shisui tilted his head to the side in confusion. Really? I find it easier to aim at its weak point, more stamina efficient for me. I think so too. Itachi chimed in. No one bothered to point out that it was only easy for them because of their Sharingan. Naruto-kun, you know quite a lot about this shuriken. Kurenai herself liked the seal-enhanced shuriken because it was efficient and versatile. Did you assist the seal master who designed it? Blue eyes blinked at her in confusion. Uchiha Shisui answered her, it's Naruto's design, and that's why we know about the weak point in the center, we're the ones who tested it after all. He sighed dramatically, and what a painful and long test it was. You take such a damn long time to decide on the final design. It'll be a long while until I deign to help you with any weapon-enhancing seals again, it's so troublesome. To be fair, it's more expensive than the usual seal because the traditional shuriken design needed to be modified. We have to worry about weight, durability, and aerodynamics. He huffed indignantly. But I agree. I won't be designing another seal like that anytime soon. He muttered weakly, recalling the process of redoing the shuriken designs and safety mechanisms so it wouldn't blow up in their weapon pouch by accident. Kurenai was amazed. After all, Gajyo Jujiki no Fuin was the most widely used seal since explosive tags and storage seals were invented. The only drawback was how it took a while to get used to. The invention was heavier than normal shurikens. This minor difference in weight would throw off their muscle memory by a bit. It was also very expensive, 3 times the price of a normal shuriken. Naruto-kun. Iwashi called the younger shinobi who had been spacing out for quite a while. Good fight, your teamwork is as impressive as always. She admitted Iwashi was right. At first, they seemed to be all over the place. Regardless, as the battle progressed, the team was somehow in sync. Their strategy was, although unorthodox, very efficient. She had never seen Kawarami used in tandem with Kage Bunshin so effectively, never mind being mixed with a subtle genjutsu to ensnare them into a trap. Ah, thank you Iwashi-san. By the way, you should be trying for Takubutsujonin soon, right? You already have the skills to be one. Takubutsujonin? Already? The blonde just laughed sheepishly. Ah, about that, Hakure Shishao hasn't given his permission yet. Why? Is it because he thinks you're too young? Hakure-sama wasn't against you getting promoted to Chunin before. He inclined his head towards Itachi and Shisui. And you guys too, it's just about time you guys get promoted to Jonin, especially Shisui-kun. He shrugged. Since I am a specialist in an obscure art like Fuinjutsu, rank doesn't matter much if some mission requires my service. Iwashi nodded sagely. Right. He smiled at Iwashi, a seemingly genuine smile, but Kurenai couldn't read him at all. I will earn my promotion when I deserve it. Ceiling Tower. He didn't know when he could first feel the subtle hum of chakra in their surroundings. The so-called nature chakra, energy that has been floating around since the Rakudo Sennin era, both abundant and free. He wasn't conscious of it all the time, but the absence was prominent when he was inside a chakra sterile barrier like this. The air felt lighter, empty, and cold. Lifeless. He was told his awareness meant he had a natural aptitude to be a sage. A lot of his clan members were sensitive to natural chakra. Which explained a lot, it was genetic heritage. Though he wondered if his chakra leaning heavily towards yang-natured chakra, which explained by his crappy affinity for genjutsu, was another genetic quirk of the Uzumaki clan. Yang chakra was a warm energy that breathed life to form. Young master, relax. Xian's calming voice snapped him back to reality. We're crafting a seal that is connected to your chakra path, so we need you to be calm and relaxed. He must have been scrunching his face just now, which was why Xian was worried his mind was troubled or something. Nah, just thinking about my strong affinity for yang chakra. I can't help but wonder if it's really a genetic quirk common in my clan or dash. Shien coughed. Actually, young master, while I was born in Konoha, I am pretty sure that vegetable and crops in Uzushio never tried to escape us from harvesting them. I wonder if in spring, our cabbage will fly somehow. Shien's sweat dropped. While I am glad you are not thinking about anything stressful, young master. I don't think we want to see flying vegetable. Hakure snorted. Why not? It would be a good workout. He tuned out their argument, eyes wandering over the circular room where the seal formula had taken over the entire chamber. Because of his position, lying in the center of the room, he could only see part of the seal. Hiwa, some parts of this seal are using glyphs based on Sanskrit from Rakuto Senin's era. This was the first time he saw a seal with a composite glypt, in which the larger seal was composed of smaller seals that used a different writing system, adding more complexity and stability to the mechanism. Like a machine with parts made of different materials best suited for each component. For example, the Enlightenment's Hiration used Sanskrit like Kuchi Yase, but his father's version was pure kanji. Which was a strange way of recreation, to start all over using a completely different glypt. Though, from war stories he heard from Hakure and memories of his father, there didn't seem to be any significant differences between the two versions. He really had to study other glypts, not just standard kanji characters. While kanji was the most common and stable form of writing in Fuinjutsu, there were other kinds of glypt, less common but with its own versatility. He was getting the hang of Sanskrit, and considering the third glypt, it could help him to finish that seal he wanted. But which? There was no point wasting time learning a new writing system if it got him to nowhere, right? So, I am thinking to add another writing system to my repertoire after Sanskrit, maybe Nushu. While it's good to distract yourself because you're bored. Like all people would when laying on the ground half naked while seal masters around you were busy. Naruto-sama, thinking about stressful things like work is not something I recommend you to do. Yes, remember Naruto, you can't stress yourself out until this seal is finished. He was very tired of getting the same warning over and over again, he was fed up. Though, he finally got an explanation of what this Satori that Hakure was fretting about was. Not that Hakure had a choice but to spill. Flashback to the day before. It was just another day, or rather, it felt like it. Though, to be honest, he had an unusual start to his day, he felt exhausted. Being both an Uzumaki and a Jinchuriki gave him seemingly unlimited stamina, but as proven countless times, he still had his limit. For the first time that month, he had exhausted himself. 3 straight all-nighters on attempting to create a teleportation seal was draining even for Naruto. The seal was perhaps too advanced for a 4th Dan seal master, but he figured the need to be able to get out of his stickiest situations was a pressing need for him. As pointed out by Shisui, strategical retreat was important, and in Naruto's case, he had to work harder to survive because of his unique status. Especially since as much as Naruto prided himself for his accomplishments at the tender age of 9, he had a very long way to go to survive against Madara or whoever it was who managed to fight on equal grounds with his father that fateful night. So far he had met more trouble than ever, and even more failures were to come on the road. It made him realize that he had overestimated the amount of effort he put in so far, that while, yes, he was a hard worker, but he was also a very talented hard worker. In comparison to other seal masters, he hadn't worked nearly as hard as they did to achieve the same results. So for the first time, he had hit an invisible wall and he didn't know how to scale it. It was stressful and he was tempted to pull his hair out or something equally painful to alleviate his frustration. And also the headache, it started to become a routine. Kurama was also getting frustrated because according to the Biju, he was not sick and that headache was just a headache, so Kurama couldn't help him. He did nothing of sorts that would stimulate premature balding, he had an image to keep. Besides, he kinda had to wander around the tower a little to show his face. Because as much as he liked his privacy, his subordinates would start asking if he didn't show his face at least once a day. So he would just grin and bear it, literally. Although it would cause a nasty headache, it wasn't worth worrying the people around him to death just to avoid a minor annoyance. All he needed was to catch some snooze and he would be as good as new. Not now though. Naruto-sama. Hurry. 7-year-old Atlas squealed in a high-pitched voice, almost making him grimace in pain. It wasn't that Atla's voice was abnormally high, but his headache made it unbearable to listen to. Slow down, Atla. He let the two young boys drag him outside. The field isn't going anywhere, and I am sure we planted plenty for everyone. The sealing division might be the smallest shinobi division in Konoha, but due to the Uzumaki clan's status rivaling that of founding clans like the Uchiha and Senju, they received a larger than necessary plot of land in Konoha, which was why they had their own training ground and field to grow crops. Mew, the youngest Shiamatsu at the age of 3, held his hand in iron grip. But Sweet Potato LL go somewhere. Naruto-sama's seal made them run. In hope to increase the quality of their crops, Naruto proposed that they should use the same seal he used on his garden. Some seal masters were worried, but they supposed the crops wouldn't be as active as Naruto-sama's plants, maybe wiggling a little from time to time, but in their profession, it wouldn't be the strangest thing that's ever happened. So why not let him do it? It was needless to say that the results exceeded all expectations. Sure, the taste and health of the crops increased exponentially, and nowadays, they didn't even need to care for it too much. There was just one tiny little problem. Apparently, because Naruto didn't take care of them personally and most seal masters only tended to their field as some sort of hobby, the plants didn't love them. So whenever it was about time that the crops were ripe for harvest, the vegetables would try to flee. As if saying, like hell, we'll let you eat us without a fight. It seemed today the of sweet potatoes had uprooted themselves from the earth, roots, and everything, before hopping out their field. They managed to erect a barrier to stop their crops from going too far, but it seemed the crops wouldn't go down without a fight. Atla! Mew! Uzumaki shrieked in horror as the one tough sweet potato attempted to strangle the boys. Someone! Kill it! Naruto looked around him, frowning when he realized there were a lot of civilians today. All of them were also refugees from Uzu. Some were married to the shinobi part of Tower's population, but the majority stayed civilians and tended to their fields and other jobs so seal masters could focus on their job and maintain the Tower's self-sufficiency. He rarely saw them though, considering his living quarter was at the highest level of the Tower, which was off limits to them. Maybe he should say hi, or something. Naruto-chama. Mew called him. This is so fun. He only took his eyes off of them for a second and Mew had already gotten himself hung upside down by a sweet potato plant. That's called dangerous, not fun, Mew. One of these days he really should teach the kids how to tell dangerous and fun apart. How did you get yourself up there? He wondered as he stomped on the wriggling plant and cut the vine tied around Mew's waist. Mew giggled as he wrapped his arms around Naruto's neck before the blonde set him down. The sweet potato even tried to strangle them when they attempted to harvest the root. It had been a common occurrence, as just last summer, the tomatoes, while not trying to run, decided that their farmers would make good target practice. And the corn tried to flatten them with fruit like it was the Uchiha's standard police stick. They let the seal be though, since strangling those crops was, surprisingly, a good exercise. A small comfort was, no matter how lively, dosed with yang chakra, those crops would never develop ability to scream. Thankfully, plants have no vocal cords. Naruto's argument to that, even if pigs squeal, I don't see it stopping you from butchering them. This is so fun. He blinked owlishly, looking around only to see Mew and Adel tackling a plant and squealing as they tore through the root for their prize. Uzumaki and Takusa were pretty far for him to hear them saying anything. But just now, he rubbed his ears. It felt like someone was whispering and giggling to his ears. Uzumaki approached him, carrying a huge basket of sweet potato. Naruto-sama. Look. Ah, they looks tasty indeed. Uzumaki raised an eyebrow, then dash. Naruto-sama looks unwell today. Perhaps he is already hungry. Naruto blinked again, confused. I am not hungry. It was unusual of Uzumaki to be so forward. But thank you for your con dash. He paused. Uzumaki was blushing. I didn't say anything like that, Naruto-sama. Am I that obvious? She stuttered. What? But you did dash, Naruto began. Kya. Kaie. So embarrassing. Naruto-sama can read me like an open book. By Rakuto Senin's beard, he didn't realize my feeling yet, I hope. The blonde covered his ears, just now it was so loud. Since when Uchiha scream like that at him? You don't have to shout Uchiha. I can hear you just fine. Since when you're using Rakuto Senin's name like that, and what feeling? At this point, Uchiha had turned as red as tomato, the basket of sweet potatoes fell to the ground and her legs were shaking. I didn't say anything. She wailed as she ran away, leaving behind a very confused Naruto. Uchiha. Wait. I never thought we'd have to strangle a plant to get to our food. He whirled around only to see the two Shiamatsu boys piling purple sweetness on their basket, and they were singing something about sweet potatoes and baking them with butter. Na. Air. Mew? Atla? Did you say something? Twin pair of purple eyes blinked at him innocently. No, we didn't. Atla answered and Mew quickly added. Naruto-chama, you don't like digging sweet potato. Looking at his empty hands. Naruto laughed nervously. Ah. I think it's fun, I will start right away. Naruto-sama. A muffled voice called him, and Naruto turned around to see Takuza with a masker over his mouth carrying a huge basket full of sweet potato on his back. Isn't that Anaki's basket? Why did she leave it here? Oh right, Takuza was still recovering from his cold. He smiled sheepishly. Well. I think I made her upset for some reason. Where is she? He had no idea what was going on, but Uchiha was upset, so I should apologize. Takuza snorted. Nah, don't worry, Anaki's mood swing is like a pregnant woman's sometimes. Just leave her be, later she will bounce back on her own. If anything, she should be sorry for making you worry. I will never do that to Naruto-sama. After all, I'm your most loyal vassal, as loyal as a dog. There you go again, I told you, comparing yourself to a do-dash. He stopped on his track, clamping his mouth shut an instant. Just now. Takuza's voice wasn't muffled, but he was still wearing his masker. So what the heck did I hear just now? Naruto-sama. Takuza asked in worry. You're getting pale, maybe you should take a nap. How strange. Naruto-sama never got sick. He rubbed his ears, he must be hallucinating or something. Takuza's voices were overlapping and yet his mouth didn't match the voice echoing in his mind. My ears feels strange. Or rather his head to be exact. Naruto-sama. A group of civilians carrying their crops approached them. Ara, what's wrong with young master? A middle-aged woman asked. He looks pale, cold perhaps. Should the young master even do this kind of menial labor? Someone from the crowd asked. It's not proper. Takuza-san, perhaps the young master needs some rest. Such a young boy shouldn't be outside when he is not feeling well. This morning. So tired, who said just yesterday? Our harvest this year. Don't play with heavy, some bring that. De blah blah see blah blah, de blah blah see blah blah, de blah blah see blah blah, blah blah see blah blah, no blah blah see blah blah, blah blah see blah blah, blah blah see blah blah, blah blah see blah blah. PST 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 but he PST 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 Naruto-sama. PST 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 PST. 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 Oi. Someone. PST PST. PST PST. PST PST. PST PST. PST PST. PST PST. What the PST PST? PST PST. 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 He began to sweat, the echoing voices in his head was getting louder. There were so many whispers he could barely make them out, they were just spiraling in his mind non-stop, and now, he couldn't even hear what they actually said any longer. Takuza's mouth was moving and he looked panicked as he reached out for Naruto. Why do Takuza? Mu and Atla looks so. Naruto. Naruto-sama. Medic. Someone call our medic. Inform Hakure-sama right away. He was still conscious, but his head was buzzing with noises. Why he couldn't move? There was no pain or anything that stopped him from moving, but his body won't listen to him. He was awake but his body was not. Why? Why? Kurama. Kurama. Help. Hurry. Shion, you slowpoke. I just arrived, Oto-san. Give me some time to prepare. His eyes were unfocused, all he could see was the blurry image of someone with graying hair. Hakure looking down at him. Sleep. Sleep, Naruto-sama. Blah 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 blah. Sleep sounded like a good idea, but Hakure, it was too noisy here, make these noises stop. You should make it stop. His eyes snapped open and he was greeted by a familiar cage and flooded sewer that was his mindscape. Kurama, what dash? He coughed, spitting water on his mouth. Ha! Kurama was here, he got through. Kurama. He was not alone. Don't you Kurama me? The nine-tailed fox snarled, if there is anything good about this cage, it's quiet and my limbs are quite free. Now it's the noisiest place I have ever been for the last 10 centuries. The fox growled, holding his long ears down. Huh. Naruto was greeted by sounds of whispering and disembodied voices echoing in the sewer. It was not as loud as before but still annoying and disorienting. What the hell? What's happening? Kurama. You tell me. Kurama pointed a clawed finger at him. Which idiot botched ninja you like you? You freaking opened your mind to people's thoughts without proper practice, and now all these random thoughts have flooded your mind. Naruto belatedly realized the water was deeper than usual, considering how it was usually knee-length and now he could barely see the bottom. It was so deep that he could actually swim in the sewer. I botched what? Ninju. That was a familiar term, oh right. Rakudo Senin's religion. Since when can I do ninju? He couldn't help but wonder. And since when did ninja cause people to hear voices? Am I going mad? He wondered with a touch of hysteria in his voice. Other than the crazily brilliant trait you inherited from your clan, I am pretty sure you're very much sane. So no, you're not going mad. Typical of Kurama to insert sarcasm even when comforting someone. No. It's not like I am comforting you or anything. I am merely stating a fact. What was the term Shisui mentioned about this kind of routine again? Oh yes, tsundere. You just hate being honest about your feelings, Kurama, that's why we love you. We as in his team. Roar. Kurama roared at him, and he was almost washed away by the mini tsunami the fox made. Thank God for water walking. I am not this tsun whatever. I am not. I am not. Baka Naruto. Amazing how Kurama was reduced to calling him Baka instead of making witty and sarcastic remarks when embarrassed. Hi, enough teasing, back to the matter at hand. Thanks to Kurama, his panic episode ended as quickly as it came. I am pretty sure I don't know how to practice ninju, his descendant, or not. That jerk Indra botched ninjutsu magnificently the first time around. I get it already. All I know about ninjutsu is from you and you're very stingy to share about it. Naruto stuck his tongue out. Anyway, a certain someone has warned me that hearing voices is not a sign of insanity. That Tanuki uncle of his was really, and he wondered why Benitora was still in his rebellion phase and pulling the home runaway routine at the age of 19. Don't care, just stop the noise. At this rate, I am going to contemplate killing us all by breaking the seal before I go mad. Naruto couldn't help but agree, these noises were driving him up to the wall. He closed his eyes and when he opened his eyes again, he was back to real world. Hakure were not far, gulping nervously. He didn't fail to note he was inside a barrier that blocked chakra from outside. He glared at Hakure. I think you owe me an explanation about Satoru. You have delayed for too long to my liking, and I doubt enlightenment consists of hearing voices in my head. Hakure opened his mouth but was interrupted by Naruto. I am not questioning my sanity, thank you for the warning, but I want an explanation so you better start talking, now. Naruto-sama, I don't mean to dash. Now, Hakure. End of flashback. And that's how he knew Satoru, which as Kurama said, was some sort of botched ninjutsu. Satoru was a mystical phenomenon in which a person directly experiences their own higher consciousness, and in that moment of heightened awareness, one is directly open to the energy generated by all living things, the sum of all creation and its flow in the world. Giving the possessor of the Satoru the ability to see through a person's heart. Even without speaking aloud, the user's able to know what any person is thinking. However, unlike the Yamanaka clan, rather than penetrating a mind, it's actually more like naturally receiving thoughts. While Hakure revered his ability, he had his own thoughts about this so-called bloodline limit, or was it affinity? Defect? Why did he have to inherit such a troublesome thing? It couldn't even be turned off. He couldn't tell actual speech and thought apart. It was out of control all the time and gave him an immense headache in its awakening phase. Even Kurama was sorry for him. Sounds like an uncontrollable practice of ninjutsu. What the heck did your grandfather do to himself? The sage exemplified his teachings by distributing chakra meant to connect people's spiritual energies with one another. It would allow people to understand each other without communication and pray for one another's safety. So like Kurama said, Satoru was basically a botched ninjutsu, because while it enabled him to hear whatever a person is thinking of saying as actual speech, it was a one-way thing. It was also a shallow ability considering the user could only know what a person is thinking on the surface but they can't hear anything deeper than that. Strong thoughts are like shouts, unfocused ones are like whispers. Not everything is sent over, and in the end Satoru, as ironic as its naming was, it didn't help users understand each other, and if anything, was invasive. So was it useful? Considering that one time he accidentally overwhelmed himself with negative thoughts and had a panic attack, scaring Itachi and Shisui in the process. Hell no. If anything, it was a pain in the ass, and Kurama's natural detector of negative intent on top of it was not helping. We don't know how effective Muramasa's seal for you, Naruto-sama, considering your Jinchuriki status and Kurama-san's latent ability. Even if the seal to control Satoru's ability to receive thought worked on his grandfather, it might not work properly on him. I get it. I am worried about Naruto-sama. Is he alright? You guys know I can hear you, right? He pointed out, wincing. Hakure chuckled softly, we let our minds wander, it's alright Naruto-sama. Satoru can't hear everything, and most experienced ninjas naturally develop a mind that can prevent the Satoru from invading their thoughts. Badump. Yes, nothing to be scared about. He lied through his teeth. Damn it Naruto. Calm down, you're stressing yourself out again. Kurama snarled in the depth of his mind, thoughts can't hurt you. Don't think that they can harm you. I won't allow it. Get a hold of yourself. Yes. I know Kurama. It was a lie to say he was not scared at all. After all he always thought the villagers could hate him all they wanted and that they couldn't hurt him more than they already did. But Satoru made that pain became more real to him, to the point that he couldn't ignore them any longer. Young master, we're activating the seal now. Brace yourself. Shion said as he handed Naruto a stick wrapped in a towel to bite on. When a seal that is connected to your chakra path is activated, the chakra of the seal master would invade your system, and unlike medical chakra, it would be painful. Kurama, don't resist it, alright? Yeah. I know, let the chakra inside no matter how uncomfortable, and keep the amount of my chakra in your system at bare minimum so I don't accidentally wash the chakra out. Kurama was totally rolling his eyes. Naruto knew he was. Clap. Let's begin. Hakurei gave him a nod and Naruto braced himself for the pain. Tenparin in no Fyun. Hatsuyudu. Then the Shiamatsu channeled the chakra, and the whole room lit up. Naruto bit down a cry. The pain was worse than usual because the seal was also touching the tenketsu and chakra path on his head. Pain was pain, but the worst part was feeling something foreign invading your body. It was not pleasant. It's done, young master. Naruto opened his eyes, looking up in hope he could see the seal. Shion approached him and gave him a hand mirror. His reflection staring back at him, in his forehead was a compressed formula in the shape of the seal that reminded him of lotus, or was it a sun? For his manly pride's sake, he hoped it to be the latter. Oi, Naruto, there are lotus flower growing in the water now. I have not been informed you are going to decorate my place. Naruto took a quick look at his mindscape, and to his horror, in front of Kurama's cage, and some even past the bars, were lotus flowers growing all over the flooded sewer that was his mindscape. To be fair, I have no plans of decorating, but hey. At least it's an improvement for your living place. Kurama eyed the white flower. Thank sage it was not pink, at least that had washed into his cage. Rather than flowers. I want an open sky and the cool earth. I get it. I will think of some way to take control of my mindscape. Kurama had been in a very sulking mood lately. He looked down on the mirror, and to his surprise, his forehead was seal-free. It was fortunate Tenparin in no Fyun was the type that could be hidden. Hakurei cleared his throat and waited. Naruto blinked olishly before saying, I can't hear you. He beamed, it's a success. Then, Naruto-sama, would you like to try to loosen the seal so you dash? Absolutely not. He refused, tying his headband. It's been a month and the headache has finally stopped. I don't feel like hearing voices whenever I go. Yesterday it had been bad. He was helping other seal masters harvest the sweet potato, and he learned his fellow seal masters were very creative when it comes to revenge. They didn't even care how sweet potatoes have no pain receptors. The things he overheard yesterday were disturbing. Especially the part where Kagari was planning to roast a sweet potato and make the plants watch as he eat it. He knew it was normal to eat them, but the thought of how it was like letting someone watch you eat their toes didn't leave him. The following headache felt like it was going to split his head open. Thankfully Itachi and Shisui were on a mission, so they didn't know, and he didn't need them hovering over him because of this. He would tell them about it later, of course, after informing them it was under control first. Hakurei, do I have anything to do today? He wanted a distraction. The sooner he could forget ever having this troublesome bloodline limit the better. While he respected his heritage, the Satoru was more troublesome than it's worth. Hakurei blinked. I believe you've been invited to Nara clan's compound for tea. No specific date, but we have been requested to send a reply on when it's convenient for you. The Aburame clan did too. Nara and Aburame, what could make them oh shit? I should have kept my mouth shut, maybe, or maybe not. Naruto grumbled, at the questioning looks from Shion and Hakurei. He added. No, I am not sure they're happy or unhappy with us. Hakurei was giving him an odd look. Pardon me, young master, but what did you do to make Aburame Shivi and Nara Shikaku to feel the need to invite you for tea? He shrugged. I guess it's something to do with me honestly answering Nara Shikamaru's question whether or not it's possible to replicate his clan's hidden, secret tradition, with Fuinjutsu. Young master, that's Shion trailed off. I know, but if this Nara child planning to learn Fuinjutsu, he will find out sooner or later that yes. Fuinjutsu could replicate most ninjutsu, even hidden. An elemental bloodline limits to an extent. He is a Nara and Shikaku Dano's son. Don't you think hiding this fact is going to backfire in the long run? Naruto droned on. Beside, our rules make it very clear that replicating hidden is plagiarism and a heresy. Hakurei smiled at his young charge. Such insight was indeed worthy of the heir of the Uzumaki clan. I suppose you shall attend this matter personally. Naruto raised an eyebrow at him. I suggest you do, young master. Naruto's sweat dropped. Hakure had thrown subtlety out of the window and outright suggested that he should strengthen their alliance with Aburame and Nara clan. I get it. Well, he was still stuck on the latest seal formula he was trying to design. So perhaps he's better off making himself useful out there rather than pulling out his hair over the 5th failed design for this week alone. Also, it would take his mind off of the Satori Nara clan compound. Unlike the Uchiha clan, the Nara's main family house was modest, and if not for the address, Naruto wouldn't be able to tell it apart from other houses in the compound. Though the most surprising part was, here we are, Uzumaki Naruto-kun. Why was the Nara clan head picking him up from the entrance personally again? Not to mention, hello Uzumaki-kun. It's been a while. His whole team was here, which was not too strange. He had met Inoichi before. The Yamanaka clan head owed them a favor and agreed to evaluate his psyche on Hakure's request. While Inoichi didn't know about his contact with Kurama or his glimpse of his parents' memory, the older blonde was well aware of abnormal maturity he developed. I am Akimichi Chauza, nice to meet you Uzumaki-kun. He gave Naruto a hearty handshake. So young and already a chunin and formidable seal master, really impressive, kid. Kid? It had been a while since he was last called a kid. Then the last person greeted him. If not for the strange chakra of this person, Naruto would have a hard time to spot him. Aburameshivi, it's a pleasure to meet you Uzumaki-kun. Why? Because we have so many things to discuss, especially about our children. So a meeting with 4 clan heads at once, but in comparison of meeting with the Hokage and his advisors, which were occurring a bit too often for his liking, or getting personal lesson from Tokugawa i.e. Yasuo, it felt surprisingly mild in comparison, especially since the clan heads were all trying to be as friendly as they could for some bizarre reason. Well then, excuse me for a moment. The blonde boy cleared his throat before a small puff of chakra smoke formed beside him and a perfect replica of him appeared. They couldn't help but look at the visible hands on the table, and back to the boy who was politely ignoring their stares to pass a note to his clone. They couldn't help but think, he is their son, all right. So the children interested in joining our foundation class are Nara Shikamaru-kun and Aburame Shino-kun, right? The clone was writing it down. But not Akimichi Chuji-kun or Yamanaka Ino-kun. It felt so strange to hear a boy who was younger, by a few months too, than their own children talk to them like that. Nara Shikaku frowned. Is this boy really 9? And his manner? Inoichi wasn't kidding when he told me how this boy is mentally older than his body. It's been a while since the last time I saw him, and it's good to see him start growing again. Inoichi was sure that if he didn't know the boy was his daughter's age, he would have thought the younger blonde was at least 12 years old. Though as usual, he acts like a de-aged adult. Uchiha Itachi, Fugaku's, and Mikato's son, was just as bad, and it was no wonder the two were good friends. Chauza was perplexed by the enigma sitting across him. He is 9, right? Chuji's age. What a mystery. Aburameshivi thought. We have distributed guidebooks to academy students regarding our program. Most of the basics are in there, but if you have any questions not covered yet in this book. He held up a plain book with the Sealing Division insignia printed in the front cover. I will answer it to the best of my ability. Shikaku couldn't help but feel that being the target of a business smile aimed by a 9-year-old was, to put it lightly, a surreal experience. Though the strangest thing was how unflappable the boy was to find not 1 but 4 clan heads waiting for him. He wasn't intimidated at the least by their presence, and professionally accepted their request to enlighten them about the Sealing Division's latest program. So, would there be a problem if my son, Shino, was to join this program? After all, Aburame clansmen have unusual bodies and chakra. Shivi asked, adjusting his sunglasses. The boy pondered the question for a moment while his clone kept taking notes in. Unlike other shinobi arts, few ninjutsu require chakra molding outside of our body within the seal formula. As for the nature of chakra, as long as it's not corrosive in nature, there shouldn't be a problem. He assured the Aburame, though when he is studying inside the tower, I would like to warn your son not to let his Kakaichuya wander outside of his body for various reasons. They're chakra-eating bugs after all. Shivi nodded. I understand, you don't need to worry. Why? Because I have utmost faith in my son's ability to control his Kakaichuya. Chaoza beamed at the stoic Aburame. Good for you, Shivi. Shikaku smirked. So Naruto-kun. Casually changing the way he addressed the blonde, Shikamaru believes that when you were teaching his class, you implied that Fuinjutsu can replicate our Haiden, and rest assured, we of the Nara clan are not offended but rather curious of how. Shikaku pointedly ignored the horrified look on Inoichi's, quite frankly, scandalized face of Chao's. Seriously, he wasn't being mean here. He was well aware of Inoichi's intentions of strengthening clan relations with the tower, and in turn Uzumaki clan, and that his clan and Chao's would, sooner or later, follow. However, before that could happen, he wanted to get to know the heir of the Uzumaki clan better, what kind of person he was. And what better ways to show someone's real nature than cornering them? 3. How? Uzumaki Naruto echoed him, and Shikaku was tempted to smirk again when he saw hesitation in the young boy. Naruto's eyes shifted from a warm shade of blue to a hardened steel-like glint, one he had seen commonly in the boy's father. As far as I know, your shadow technique falls under Wyanton, which is based on the spiritual energy that governs imagination. It can be used to create form out of nothing, which gives me a basic idea on where to start. It was amazing how quickly the boy was thinking up a solution on the fly, but Shikaku knew his father, and this quick thinking was the reason why he and his clansmen thought so highly of Minato. There is a property of movement and propagation in your Haiden, so using sun and cloud characters are a given. The boy was off to his Seal Lala land, and Shikaku wondered if he had even noticed that he had been talking non-stop for over an hour about seals. And that's basically how in theory, but I am sure once we get down to it, there would be a lot of hitches we need to work out. Shikaku was amused. So no kidnapping and dissecting our clansmen. Shikaku. Chaoza hissed. A chakra sample would be helpful, but your Haiden has nothing to do with your body, it's not a bloodline limit. So what's the point? He cockled his head to the side, not to mention we have our own rules on research that limit it to be as humane as possible. Sure, going as far as necessary would yield more results, but from our experience, those inhumane seals, more often than not, give us more trouble than they're worth. For example, the Uzumaki heir laughed. Nadaime Sama's Edo Tensei, for example. Call us paranoid, but ever since its creation, we, the sealing division, have had this unshakable feeling that we will, eventually, end up regretting its existence. Shikaku had to admit, you didn't have to be a seal master to have that feeling. A technique to raise immortal zombies was bound to bring trouble one day. Troublesome indeed. He chuckled softly. So, are you satisfied with my answers so far? Shikaku Dano. He nodded. More than that, thank you for sating my curiosity, but again, about my son. The Uzumaki nodded. While he has his own reason to be interested in your art, my wife believes it can be a good motivator to convince Shikamaru to pick up some slack at last. Do you think learning Fuinjutsu would be good for my son's motivation? He got his answer in a heartbeat. It was almost like the Uzumaki didn't even need to think. I have heard of people motivated to learn Fuinjutsu for various reasons, but I never know it works the other way around. In fact, it's widely believed that Fuinjutsu is good at discouraging people to learn it. Especially since it's a given that you will see more failure throughout your journey to master Fuinjutsu than success. He said with a completely contradicting smile, as if he had informed them of good news rather than a grim prospect of their son's future as a seal master. Silence. He is definitely not lying. Why did he say it as if it's a good thing? Even for someone as talented as you? Naruto-kun. Naruto blinked while pointing at himself. The definition of talented in Fuinjutsu is basically how good you are at making your failures count. Which mostly depended on surviving the seal formula exploding, and not giving up in the face of countless failures. And turn it into success. I don't know about getting motivated, but most of us seal masters are just sore loser who loathe leaving failure as failure. Shikaku grinned. Well, you're good at making your words sound inspiring. I believe you have a lot of academy students convinced to try learning Fuinjutsu. So far, we have over 20 students applying for the class, but it's not like all of them would make it. because of the harsh selection. All of them are assessed on their hand-eye coordination, and we require students to be at least passable in mathematics, but by the end of the first semester, we predict around half would be washed out of the program. Inoichi frowned at that. As I thought, the sealing division has little resources and a workload that could rival the medic corps. I'm surprised they're even considering the recruitment academy students. Which makes it logical for them to be very selective, and their graduation percentage could be lower than the Genin exam's 33%. Shikaka thought. Very well then, let my son join then. It will be a good lesson for him at least. The Uzumaki blinked. We, of course, welcome everyone to the program. While at the same time welcoming anyone to drop out, was not said but clearly implied. But what kind of lesson do you think we will teach your son, other than the obvious? He couldn't help but ask. Shikaka grinned. One lesson that, no matter how intelligent you are, sometimes you need more than just brains to help you bypass an obstacle, even if it is troublesome. His sweat dropped. Ah, I see, then I will put Nara Shikamaru-kun's name on the list. This must be another father who enjoys baiting his son like Hakure Tishian, in which he should just let them go at it and move on. So, is there anything else you need from me? If not, I dash. Shikaku's grin widened. One more thing, would you mind coming once in a while to play shogi with me? I'd be more than glad to teach you how if you don't already know. I know how to play Shikaku Dano. Like any prominent clan head would, I don't mind playing with you, it would be my pleasure. Seriously, why do all intelligent strategists love to play shogi? At least he just had to play, he didn't have to overturn the board to prove a point. Few days later. Tokijaku in Timeless Palace. So after 7 weeks, the Uchiha clan head is still tiptoeing around his clan to get the new policy gradually approved, and in your end, the induction of new recruits is still in progress. Naruto struggled to not flinch under Ieyasu's gaze. Yes. Not bad, but aren't you being too timid in your move? To be fair, it's getting restless in Konoha now. The specific details were classified, so he had to phrase it vaguely. That our security is compromised, and our investigation on it isn't going so well. They were just too many things at hand. Ieyasu sighed. So in short, your division and the Uchihas are too busy with the matters at hand to concern yourselves with a revolutionary change. Naruto glanced at Itachi and Shisui, who were sitting in Seiza a few steps behind him. Itachi tilted his head. Well, it's slow, but we've managed to keep it moving forward. In fact, we've taken advantage of the current situation to get the KMPF to cooperate more openly with the Sealing Division. Which made it also openly clear to the Uchiha clan that the Sealing Division had faith in them, and their alliance was real. All things considered, I suppose you've managed to get some things done. Ieyasu admitted his future son-in-law and friends were doing quite well, even though they had their hands full with several complications. Still, I couldn't help but wonder why Hiruzen Dano is keeping that Danzu around. I've been watching that old crone out for years, and I have to say, he doesn't seem to be worth all the trouble he's made to be kept around. Then he added, and that's me being generous. They could agree on that. Sure, that would be true if just carelessly eliminating him didn't mean airing our dirty laundry for the world to see. If there was one thing Danzo was irreplaceable for, it was his ability to keep their skeletons in the dark closet. Ieyasu sighed again. My father must be rolling in his grave by now, since he let the Sandaime convince him to turn a blind eye on Danzu's crime. It didn't surprise them that the equally crafty father of Ieyasu was tempted to end Danzu. Especially since some of his more shoddier schemes could threaten their country, and not just Konoha. Does that mean we have your blessing to plot his demise? Naruto couldn't help but wonder in a hopeful voice. Don't get too eager to end Danzu, you have more pressing matter to deal with. Besides, not even I can order his execution, but I suppose you have my blessing if the opportunity were to arise. Thank you very much, Aji-sama. Ieyasu scoffed. Still, the three of you should go to see Tadara, he will foresee your lesson for today. If my hunch is right, Danzo will prepare something nasty for you the moment you return to Konoha. The man would want to confirm their loyalty again in fear they were going to change allegiances. The three young shinobi sweat dropped at that. Why are you giving us an ominous premonition like that? His grin said, he just loved messing with them. After the week was over, the team returned to Konoha. They learned a lot of things in the capital, especially about Humra and their lord. Like how Totsuka Tatara was an angel-faced demon who took joy in teaching them lessons ranging from the dirtiest tricks in politics, to sweet-talking an ambassador to give up their organs. Mahiro disliked them on principle, but she hated Shisui even more for some reason, much to the Shushin expert's disappointment. Benitora had a habit of going missing in order to get away from his father, which made them wonder if the name was jinxed considering a certain cat who belonged to Benitora's aunt, sharing both his name and habit. He had also learned that going back and forth from the capital was exhausting, and he still had no clue why, up until now, he had yet to meet his fiancée. He wasn't too concerned, but he couldn't deny that he was worried his fiancée had the same habit as her brother. That couldn't be the reason why they weren't introduced yet, he hoped. He was too afraid to ask. Then, like a charm, Ieyasu's prediction became a reality. It turned out, Danzo really did prepare something nasty for them, just waiting for the moment they stepped 2 feet in the Hokage's office. Konoha. It was another mission with Team Ro, or rather given to them under Team Ro's name. In which, rather than the whole team, the mission was only assigned to Naruto, Shisui, and Itachi. The mission was tailing a Jonin who was a suspected Kirigakuru's spy. Naruto didn't even bat an eye at the revelation that they had a traitor in their midst, but he was surprised that Kirigakure had a spy in Konoha. Shouldn't they focus on their own ongoing civil war instead of spying on other hidden villages? Kirigakure was doing so well these days, in sprouting missing nin after missing nin. So the idea they turned another village's shinobi to their cause was baffling to Naruto and his team. Then again, Naruto had no idea what was going on inside Yagura's head. Going homicidal after being treated like crap by your village? A classic story of their life as Jinchuriki. Choosing self-exile rather than dealing with a village that treats you like weapon of mass destruction rather than a human? If not for his parents and friends, he would be very tempted to follow Roushi's and Han's example. But he didn't get why the bloodline purge was passed by Yagura. It was strange to fear bloodline limit holders, considering he had a 3-tailed Biju sealed in him. So it was highly probable that Yagura really had lost his mind like the rumors said. But then, how had a Mizukage who had lost his mind, been able to plant spies in their ranks? Still, regardless of his doubts, a mission was a mission. So being the good loyal shinobi that they were, all they had to do was follow instructions without questioning the detail. Which was a very tempting thing to do, considering Danzo was the one who briefed them about this mission. Why the heck had this bastard been the one who gave them the order? While Hokage-sama was still in the room, no less. Considering your talent in stealth you showed at a very young age. Danzo frowned at him disapprovingly, clearly showing his opinion about what he thought of Naruto's pranking days. You will stay in the shadows while observing your teammates and target. You can hide from the Umbu, and I'm sure you can do the same against a Jonin, especially with your teammates' assistance. A business smile bloomed in his lips in response, and he knew that it irritated Danzo to no end judging by the deepening frown the Warhawk made. Of course, Councilman Danzo. I will do my best to accomplish this mission. He definitely was not trying to be subtle on what he wanted from Naruto and his team. He was testing Naruto's skill for covered missions, as well as his decision-making skills when his teammates were in danger. As for you two, Uchiha Itachi, Uchiha Shisui, both of you will be placed in Ko Hinata Mukai's team. You shall observe his movement and decide when to assassinate him. Naruto couldn't help but frown at the copy of Ko Hinata Mukai's profile. This person has permanent teammates. He would get suspicious if Shisui and Itachi replaced his teammates all of a sudden for one specific mission, an important one to boot. Unless... Danzo, you bastard. By the next day, he confirmed their suspicions by requesting Tenitsu, one of the seal masters who specialize in medical seals and a qualified medic, to check hospital records. That bastard. Naruto slammed the medical records Tenitsu had passed to him on his desk. He deliberately planned for Mukai's teammates to be out of commission. Shisui was gritting his teeth. I knew he was a shady character, but for him to deliberately injure innocent Konoha just to make spots for us to spy on Mukai. An accident in their previous mission, it said. Itachi noted the reason for their hospital admissions on paper. Are such drastic measures necessary? Hakure sighed, not really, Danzu is just too used to using unscrupulous means to get what he wants to the point that he's forgotten there are more civil ways to achieving the same result. Like simply assigning other pressing missions to Mukai's teammates. At that, the three young shinobi cringed in unison, so it's merely out of habit. I know it sounds dumb, but this habit of his is why Danzu is so dangerous. Hakurei droned on, he is a warmonger through and through, and even though our Hokage is well aware of Danzu's shady way of working in the dark, by now, he still believes his childhood friend is not that far down there yet. Hiruzen believes in Danzu's devotion to Konoha first and foremost, but it's still very hard for him to believe his childhood friend has become a monster. Naruto could understand the old man's sentiments. After all, even now Hokage-sama still held a faint hope that the blonde was still his bright and adoring surrogate grandson. A hope Naruto was breaking without mercy behind his back. Still, an assassination mission. He looked at the mission brief again. Hakurei's gaze softened. For all of you, this is the first mission that specifically targets someone's life. This was true for all of them. While they already killed, their mission never specifically consisted of taking someone's life as its main objective. Contrary to popular belief about shinobi, assassination was a rare mission to be carried out, especially in Konoha. It had nothing to do with Konoha's notoriety as a soft-hearted village or keeping their good image to civilian clients. It was simply because targeting a specific person's life, more often than not, could carry future possibility of beginning a never-ending CYCL45E was a risk not worth taking. Once, there was an assassination mission carried poorly by a Konoha Chunin, around the eve of the Third Shinobi War. There were witnesses and the Chunin was recognized by the wife of the target as a shinobi from Konoha. Revenge was a fearsome thing and not even a month later, a request to assassinate that Chunin came to Konoha. And the same request was also sent to all shinobi villages, much to their horror, the reward being the entire fortune the wife inherited from her late husband. It was not the most noteworthy turning point in history, but that act of revenge raised the tension and got the ball called the Third Shinobi War rolling in their history. The poor Chunin didn't even survive past the first year of war. Technically he is a traitor and one of our own, so rather than assassination, it's more like an execution. Itachi concluded. However, if he is suspected to be affiliated to Kiri. Shisui frowned. Nowadays, Kiri is unpredictable, with the civil war and everything. They don't have a long-standing grudge against Konoha like Iwa and Kumo, but this mission reeks of trouble, more so than simply executing a traitor. Naruto finished. I have no doubt Danzu is setting us up for more trouble. Seriously, Danzu seemed to have unexplainable grudge against them. Not to mention back in their briefing, the way he looked at Itachi and Shisui, while he knew he was being looked at in the same way, he didn't like way Danzu stared at his friends. There was an unmistakable lust for power that gave Naruto the dimension. According to rumors, Hatake Kakashi was recruited by Danzu himself to Umbu. Hakurei also implied Danzu had an issue with his late teammate, Shisui's father. Although Danzu was suspicious and unnaturally wary of the Uchiha clan, it didn't mean he was ignorant of their power. So perhaps it was decided, for Konoha's sake, he would let Danzu live for as long as necessary, but the moment he reaches his dirty grubby hands out for Itachi and Shisui, he wouldn't give a damn about secrecy. He would eliminate Danzu, even if that meant tapping into Kurama's forbidden power to do so. Naruto? What's with that scary look on your face? Shisui asked. Realizing his slip, Naruto quickly curved up his lip to a wan smile. Nah, it's nothing, just think how life would be easier if we could just get rid of Danzu, haha. He told Shisui's what's on his mind jokingly. Is that so? You have been warned by Ieyasu-sama, you know it's tempting, I know. Right. It was not a lie but not the truth either, for once, there was one dark secret he kept for them, how far he would go for them, that is. Mukai Ko Hinata graduated at the age 11 as part of an acceleration program at the end of the Second Shinobi War. He was promoted to Chunin at 14 through a field promotion, and Jonin at 23 after 2 failed attempts at the Jonin exam. He was a taijutsu specialist with average scores in ninjutsu and byokaijutsu. He had no aptitude for genjutsu but adept enough to dispel them. He has a rather lackluster career for a shinobi who's survived till his 30s. Shisui commented on the profile of their target. Not to mention he is a taijutsu specialist. Taijutsu specialists have a very short range of attack. Mukai KO Hinata had to be especially formidable to survive a war as one, but his record said otherwise. His mission record is, over 200 D rank, 56 C rank, 65 B rank and 3A rank. Pretty normal record but slightly below average for a Junin. Hyawa, on the next page are missions he failed at, over 10 B rank and a rank. No wonder he is not trusted with higher rank missions even though he is a Junin. Why had he failed them? He used to be in Umbu too. Though Naruto supposed it was right to suspect Mukai KO Hinata, his mission record reeked of sabotage. Especially the part about his mission percentage dropping after he quit Umbu, or rather he was dismissed. The Mukai family is, distantly related to the Hyuga. He read out, a vassal family, like Shiamatsu is to mine. That explained the kanji that made up Mukai's name. Shisui cringed, this is not going to get us in trouble with the Hyuga, right? He asked hopefully. Itachi shook his head. I don't think so, his family descended from a minor branch of the Hyuga clan. He could see the parallel between the Shiamatsu and Mukai family, but it seemed the Mukai separated themselves completely from the Hyuga. And the split from the Hyuga was many generations ago, so even though the Mukai clan retained some of their proficiency in the gentle fist, they don't have the Byakugan anymore, and unlike Shiamatsu, they no longer have ties to the Hyuga. Which meant that if Mukai KO Hinata was indeed a traitor, he would have no political protection whatsoever from the Hyuga clan. Still, even if the Hyuga weren't going to interfere, the mission still stank of trouble. Akai Tavern. Naruto found it pretty funny that civilians believed the color of one's clothes could affect a shinobi's ability to be stealthy. There was a good reason why instructors in the academy never made a big deal about fashion, as long as their clothes didn't hinder their movement, it would work. Which was why no one commented on the Aburame's choice of fashion, or the Hyuga's fondness, or was it obsession, for white and lavender. If clothes became an obstacle in your journey to becoming a ninja, you shouldn't even graduate from the academy. Besides, contrary to the civilians' belief, ninjas didn't have to hide in the shadows all the time. Their stealth, if anything, was tested on how well they could keep their cover under the unlikeliest situation. Naruto, however, was just naturally gifted at stealth, or rather, it was a skill he had developed instinctively on the course of his childhood. Naruto blamed it on a child's mood swing, he had an impressive one back then. Sometime he wanted to be seen so badly, he made himself an eyesore so people couldn't ignore him. However, when he wanted to be alone or to escape from scorn, he found it very easy to be unnoticeable. Using a henge, he altered his appearance slightly, using as little chakra as possible. Dark hair and a slightly lighter shade of skin, then wearing a plain brown coat over his equally plain clothes. In short, wearing something everyone in the surrounding area tended to wear, which contrasted from what he usually wore. That alone was enough to make him unnoticeable, because they couldn't relate his current appearance to Uzumaki Naruto. Then the easiest part was acting natural, be as quiet as possible while blending in with the crowd. It was an easy thing to do in a crowded bar, a civilian bar that charged cheaper than one targeted for ninjas and full of woozy, oblivious drunks. One more round. Give me another glass. Crowed a dark-haired male in a standard Jonin uniform, though unlike the regular long-sleeved shirt, the man was wearing one with wider sleeve. So this is Mukai KO Hinata. He had opted to spy on the man by himself tonight, so he could get a reading on what kind of man their suspected spy was. Looking at the empty bottles and metal ashtray full of cigarette butts, Naruto could tell Mukai KO Hinata was a heavy drinker and smoker. He is drunk, this is already his 5th bottle. And tomorrow this man had an important mission. Shinobi or not, he couldn't be at full health tomorrow after excessively drinking like this. I don't get humans or ninjas most of the time, but I am pretty sure getting that drunk before a mission can get him killed, right? What did that say about Mukai if even Kurama, a Biju, knew getting drunk out of your mind was not the smartest thing to do before going on a mission? Well, there are ways to sober up, but he's already past the point where he can be fixed. I doubt this guy can even go home on his own after this. There was no way Mukai wouldn't suffer a hangover tomorrow. Kurama, make sure to always get rid of anything alcoholic from my system. Drunks are dumb and I refuse to be reduced to that. He mentally pointed at the grinning Mukai who chugged glass after glass of alcohol. As if you would even think to touch anything alcoholic. Seriously, you're so proper about the strangest things. Naruto could imagine Kurama was shrugging now. As for that dumb human, it's a good thing that you and those Uchiha friends of yours don't plan to keep him alive, Kurama snickered. Naruto scoffed to his drink. He had swapped the content with water so he didn't have to worry about getting drunk. We still don't know whether our suspicion is correct or not. Leaving Mukai's character aside, Kiri gained nothing from spying on Konoha. Seriously, why the heck did Kiri pick a fight with Konoha while their own domestic affairs were in disarray? And even if there was some sort of hidden objective in spying on Konoha, why Kiri? Why are you getting fixated on making sense of this human's betrayal? Are you a stranger to traitors? Because Kurama. If you just look away and turn your back on those you don't understand, you'll regret it someday. If by the next few days we confirm he is indeed a traitor and eliminate him, the fact remains that the investigation isn't going to end with his death. Besides, I am interested in Kiri's current situation. Kurama quieted down at that before asking, Isabu's and Kokyu's prison, the current leader of Kiri is Isabu's vessel, right? Naruto have Kurama a mental nod in response, eyes straight at rows of colorful bottle of spirits, but in the corner of his eyes, he kept watch of drunk Mukai. I don't know it's relevant or not, but before your birth, Isabu reformed once. Reformed? Naruto echoed mentally, how did that happen, and when exactly? I can sense when it happens, but I wouldn't know how it happened to Isabu. As for when, I am incapable to relate to humans' sense of time, but I am sure not long before your birth. Kurama grumbled, less than a year perhaps. So around 10 years ago, if he wasn't mistaken, was not too long after Yagura's ascent to the Mizukage's position. He didn't do anything noteworthy in the first few years of his reign, and only continuing ongoing traditions made by predecessors. So perhaps Isabu's reform was not related at all. Maybe it's irrelevant, but Kurama, does this person reek of ill intent? He is drunk, his mind is a jumbled mess, I doubt he even remembers his name. Why the heck did you ask me? Right, dumb question. He sighed as he watched Mukai grumble some nonsense to a drinking buddy of his, and the civilian suggested someone had to bring the drunk Jonin home. He was really feeling sorry for Itachi and Shisui. They had to go on mission with this drunkard tomorrow, never mind their main objective was to assassinate the drunk man. The next day, Konoha's west gate. Naruto had warned them that last night, Mukai Ko Hinata had foolishly compromised himself with his excessive drinking, but it was still shocking to see a completely hungover shinobi dragging himself to their meeting point. Mukai-san, right? I am Uchiha Shisui and this is my cousin, Itachi. Mukai had the gall to look down his nose on them. Shisui suppressed his urge to scowl. Mukai-san, are you feeling unwell? Perhaps you should stay at home. Shisui asked because it was basic courtesy and ignoring Mukai's state would be suspicious. Mukai snarled, shut up, brat. I am a Jonin, a headache won't stop me from going to my mission. Then he stomped away from the Uchiha cousins, grunting about idiotic brats who should pay him proper respect instead of getting on his case. Shisui couldn't help but thought that perhaps, by the end of this mission, he wouldn't feel even a speck of guilt about killing this bastard. Itachi, on the other hand, was very worried about both their cover and real mission, because Jonin, or not, going on a mission in less than fit condition was dangerous for both himself and the team who went with him. In worst scenario, Mukai would get himself killed before they could even confirm his status. Not far from the gate, a small puff of chakra smoke erupted, and Naruto, who was already miles ahead of the team, cringed. He had been watching, and while it was not far from his expectations, Mukai showed up with a hangover and was an overall pain in the neck. He was still shocked by the man's stupidity to show up on a mission in that condition. That's not a good start. Can't you just lie to that old Hokage and one-eyed cripple and get this mission over with? I will bet my tails that somehow we can get this little spy issue tracked down to that shady-looking old prune. Naruto snorted, we wish. Kurama, I know it's boring and troublesome, but this job have to be done properly. He pointedly ignored Kurama's meh and added, as for Danzu, well, I admit it's almost funny how more than half of our problems seem to be related to him one way or another. And that's a fact, not a bet. Meh. Konoha Military Police Force HQ. The Barrier Division must be messing with us. Uchiha Yakomi stated with notable ire in his voice. Takigawa Hyoshao, a 7th Dan sealing master and member of sealing division nodded. I concur, Yakomi-san. He had met more than one Uchiha these days, so calling them by surname would cause unnecessary confusion. How long have we been at this again? 3 freaking days. You guys from Sealing Division have been checking all anchor and pillar seals in every corner of this village and have found nothing. We from KMPF have been patrolling and dispatching the best sensors and glaring at the sky with our Sharinon in hope to see chakra ripples in the barrier indicating that someone has infiltrated Konoha. And still nothing. Mikumo Osamu, a younger seal master, finished. A long-haired Uchiha named Inabi scowled. This is ridiculous. We have better ways to waste our time than looking for a non-existent threat. By now, they could really sympathize with each other for the pain of defending Konoha from the inside, and got endless complaints for doing their job. Seriously, why didn't someone start complaining to the sentry in the outpost, since if someone were to get this far, that meant they didn't do their job correctly. But no, it was their fault. Yashiro, the most senior Uchiha present, sighed, stop complaining and just do your job. Still, while I have faith in your seal, especially if it's made by Uzumaki Mito. She was a legendary figure that was overshadowed by her husband, but the fact that Konoha's defenses were never breached until now spoke a lot of her prowess as a seal master. Traders like Orochimaru of the Sun-In, for example, must have a way to get inside Konoha undetected somehow. Hyoshao nodded. Yeah, as much as we have faith in our barrier, there is no absolute defense that will stay absolute forever. It has been decades since Mito-sama's era after all. But it's odd this intruder is detected and then left just like that. Mikumo frowned and then asked, any notable incidents lately? Something missing or anything? Yashiro shook his head. Aside from a few bar scuffles and minor civilian crime, nothing. He waved his hand in negative. The 7th Dan Seal Master sighed. Still, even though nothing has happened, I think we should be really worried if someone really can just waltz into Konoha as they please, detected, and not caring because we can't catch their tail at all. That was a chilling thought. The dark-haired Seal Master dug deeper. Could it be they found some clan's secret passage and used that to bypass our barrier? Hyoshao waved his hand in negative. Mikumo-kun, perish that thought. No clan is dumb enough to not put a blood seal keyed in their secret passage. Yashiro nodded. Right, and for your information, most prominent clans had keyed the blood into the main family and it's updated in every generation. Besides, just finding a secret passage wouldn't make this infiltrator quick enough to get away after he or she is detected. Mikumo perked up at that. Then, doesn't that mean our infiltrator can go in and out of Konoha, get detected by the barrier, but get out before our patrol squads could track him down? That sounds about right, but then who's the culprit? Risking their life to infiltrate a hidden village and then leaving as soon as possible. Other than to mess with us. To be a pain. A prank. To give us a bad name. The last wild guess stopped them in their tracks. After all, they were very aware that both of their organizations, by reputation, haven't been doing so well for the last few years, not to mention that their effort to recover was slow going. This case, while seemed menial at first glance because so far there was no damage done to Konoha, it seriously put their competence in question. Hyoshao cursed. Crap, this infiltrators did some damage after all. Not to Konoha but to them. Somewhere in Hinokuni. How unusual, the Jinchuriki was not around Itachi and Shisui. He had thought the 3 prodigies were joined at the hip nowadays. Arguably, Uzumaki Naruto was the weakest Jinchuriki due to his young age and non-existent mastery over his Jinchuriki power, but he was also the hardest to get because of all those guards he had around. Itachi and Shisui in particular hardly left his side. However, he saw no merit to make a move to capture the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki now. He had been reckless to go after the Kyuubi that night, but in the end, he managed to eliminate the Yondaime and his wife, so it was not a useless endeavor in his part. Still, it would be a waste to leave them be. It seemed Itachi and Shisui weren't too far after all, so why had the Jinchuriki gone ahead on his own? Typical of Konoha, teamwork was their core, and yet, once the team separated, they would fall apart and Konoha never learned. So maybe this time, they would learn. It worth of a try, right? After all, Tobi is a good boy. Back with Naruto and Kurama. Badump. Naruto covered his mouth. his heart pounding. Just now. LL intent, but it only or a brief second, why has it gotten you so worked up? Kurama felt it, but it was so brief it wasn't worth their attention. I am not sure myself, but I think for a moment the seal is loosened, and I can feel a very. The intense thoughts hit him hard like a merciless torrent. The sharp pain in his head was subsiding, but the phantom pain was still there. The seal was like a dam that blocked thoughts from flowing through, but just now, the thoughts were so intense that it reached the point where some spilled into him. I have a bad feeling about this. Che, it can't be a good sign when both of us feel it. Whose thoughts were they? So deep and dark like bottomless well, pain and pain, hollow. Itachi, Shisui, be careful. Chapter 21, 21st Legacy. Interlude, False Enlightenment. Satoru was a double-edged blade without a hilt, as written in his grandfather's journal. It turned out to be a figurative parable. The Satoru could be a peerlessly sharp weapon, but the only way to wield its might is to suffer under the same power one unleashes. It is impossible to cut without, consequently, getting cut. Naruto had tasted it firsthand when he awakened the Satoru. Opening his mind to foreign thoughts was akin to forcibly consuming something that shouldn't be ingested. It was revolting. So naturally one's body would reject it. Hence the headache and nausea. Unlike most bloodlines with painful activations, the Satoru, according to Muramasa, would never be a natural thing. A human's mind just wasn't made to be constantly flooded with foreign thoughts. Muramasa did try to get his ability under control and he mostly succeeded, but in the end, the Satoru was never more a blessing than a curse. By tracking down his family tree using the daimyo's connections, he had researched about how the Satoru was developed and the origin of its name. By rights, it was a theory, but it made so much sense that Naruto was sure it wasn't just a figment of Muramasa's overactive imagination. That being said, Naruto was repulsed by the theory, because if it was true, his ancestors from his father's side were idiots. Using their physical and spiritual energy as weapons, Indra and Asura were the first who showed humanity how to weaponize ninjutsu. Thus, not only starting the era of ninjutsu, but also the rivalry between the Senju and Uchiha, which became a full-blown family feud. Frontal confrontation was not enough to sate their anger, so they competed in creating new techniques to get one step ahead of their rival. As the eternal rivalry went on, the Senju's side started to realize a decline in their clan. The reason was simple: they inherited the body of the sage, so as Asura's blood thinned, so did their power. The Uchiha didn't have this problem, or it just was not as obvious as the Senju's, the main reason being that they had inherited the spiritual energy of Indra rather than the body. The Senjus, specifically those with especially thin blood, were getting desperate of their handicapped bodies. Since they couldn't compete with their fellow clansmen with thicker blood, they had to look for an alternative, which eventually traced back to the root of ninjutsu. This discovery led to their efforts in recreating a ninjutsu technique to connect people's spiritual energies with one another in an offensive way. Ninjutsu was the sage of six paths teaching. This meant that it was possible for them to inherit his ability. So through rigorous trial and error, Senju clansmen tried to recreate it, going as far as taking shaman's blood to their family in order to nurture an aptitude in communicating through spiritual chakra. A few generations later, they finally succeeded. However, Satoru, the newly developed bloodline, didn't turn out the way they thought it would. At first, the ability to read minds gave the Senju clan an immense advantage against their enemy. However, just like the Mangekyo Sharingan, the Satoru also had its downside. Unlike the Sharingan that caused their eyesight to decline, the Satoru would grow uncontrollable, making the user more sensitive to foreign thoughts to the point where it was driving them towards insanity. The Senju clan agonized over what to do with the bloodline and isolated members with the Satoru bloodline. They couldn't let the Satoru be integrated into the Senju clan for any longer. So, it was decided for members who were already beyond help to be killed out of mercy, while the children who inherited their blood, with even the slightest chance of awakening the Satoru, were to be sent away from the Senju clan to a coastline village, far away from the battlefield. That was the origin of the Namikaze's bloodline limit, the Satoru. An enlightenment that his ancestors sought after so desperately. It was some sort of karma in Naruto's opinion, for their sin of corrupting ninjutsu. 21st Legacy, the play of betrayal. If an absolute truth exists in this world, that would be it. That's why shinobi exist. Because we love, we wish to protect. And that's why we want power. Uzumaki Naruto. Betrayal was a funny thing in Naruto's opinion. He was pretty sure most shinobi in Konoha would disagree, because betrayal was a crime and a dishonorable thing. Yes, shinobis had honor, just not the same honor that samurai held. However, he was not going to argue about betrayal with any Konoha shinobi, not even Itachi and Shisui. It was his personal opinion, that betrayal was a one-way road more often than not. Because people could feel betrayed without the person who betrayed them thinking the same. He had been betrayed by a lot of people in his short life, and it started the day he was born. No, he was not being dramatic, his life was dramatic enough without imagining wild exaggerations. Sure, his sacrifice to be a Jinchuriki was for the sake of Konoha and many lives would be lost if he didn't become one. Sure, his father didn't have a lot of choices, and as a Hokage, he had to do the best thing for the village. In the end, it was still a betrayal to leave your son all alone in the world, and not just as an orphan, but as a village pariah. He loved his parents very, very much, even though they only had him for a short time, he knew they loved him. But ultimately, a parent's duty is to take care of their child, and since they were dead and he was pretty miserable as a Jinchuriki, they did betray him. Next were the caretakers in the orphanage, who, on paper, are paid to take care of him and other orphans. They didn't, despite it being their job. Naruto was sure that genuinely caring for him was not in their contract, but neglecting him sure counts as not doing their job. There was a good reason why he was socially stunted by the age of 6. He had mixed feelings about Hokage-sama. Yes, Hokage-sama, not Jiji anymore. He knew why the Sandaime lied to him and all the secrets the Hokage kept from him. What made him feel betrayed was, even though the Hokage treated him as his grandson, Sarutobi Hiruzen had depraved him from the one thing he craved more than anything. That one time he asked about his parents, he wished. Hokage Jiji would at least lie that his parents loved him. He wanted some assurance that he was not unwanted, just one simple little thing, and yet, he was not granted even that. He was not trusted, and keeping a secret proved to be more important than his happiness. It was a shock to him when a person he thought of as his family couldn't even understand his desperation, and at that time, he truly felt alone. For real. He couldn't recall exactly when he had fallen asleep on the floor, he just did. Then he woke up with a nagging feeling and a headache. He didn't figure it out until years later, that his latent Satoru went haywire because of the stress he suffered after the cold rejection. And that he had passed out because the pain was too much for his young body to handle. It was pretty pathetic that he didn't take betrayal well to the point of almost getting himself killed over it. Years later, he still couldn't take it well. He was getting better, but it still hurt. Even Aizen's betrayal hurt. He might have never trusted the man, but that didn't make it any less painful. Aizen might have been a traitor and a liar, but he was still a caring and a good teacher who never once ignored him, the first one. For all the crimes he had committed against Naruto, the Uzumaki couldn't deny that Aizen was one of the few who acknowledged him. So, Naruto learned that betrayal was a one-way street and the pain it subjects you to felt less painful if you understand the reason behind that betrayal. If anything, it would be downgraded from betrayal to a conflict of interest. Make sense out of betrayal, not a spectacle, only then would it be fair and minimize pain for all the parties involved. Which was why Naruto didn't bat an eyelash when he found out that both the Uchiha clan and the tower had a paper-thin loyalty towards Konoha. Unlike betrayal, loyalty and trust were two-way streets, that's how it works. You couldn't expect a long-lasting relationship without trust from both sides, which was why the task to integrate the Uchiha clan and the tower into Konoha was such a difficult task. Trust could not be built overnight, but distrust is a parasite that would take only a blink of an eye to latch on and take hold. The same could be said about their mission in which they were investigating a suspected traitor. More often than not, investigating a traitor would take a shorter time than surveillance, to be sure that someone was loyal. Still, Naruto mentally checked this covered mission's objective. The mission was infiltration, they were to spy on a potential alliance between Suna and Kiri. Why does it have to be a political nightmare-inducing mission like this? I told you that you and your Uchiha friends are like a match made in heaven, it's a karma. The Biju chortled. Kurama. It's just how it works with you three, get in trouble together and said trouble will roll over the hill with you. Kurama sounded gleeful about it. Now you're worried, remember just months ago you said, it works for you. Now eat your words. Sucker. Naruto rolled his eyes, you're not helping, Kura dash dot. His posture straightened, eyes narrowing as he picked up his pace. For a man hindered by a hangover, he sure moves pretty quickly. You're not worried for your Uchiha friends anymore. Naruto shook his head, I am rightfully worried if my friends and teammates have to spy on an enemy nin with someone who reeks of alcohol and cigarettes. This is not going to end well, I swear. Of course, it won't. Back with Itachi and Shisui. This is not going to end well for us. Itachi and Shisui thought as they trailed a few steps behind Mukai. If this was a normal mission, Shisui would call the mission off and personally have Mukai dragged off to the Hokage's desk to complain about going on a mission in his condition. He was not fit for duty, especially not for a mission that consists of spying on potentially hostile groups of shinobi. Even without enhanced senses like Naruto's, Shisui and Itachi could tell Mukai stank of alcohol and smoke. The man had showered but the smell was still there. This mission was already doomed at this point. Their real mission, however, was an entirely different matter. They had to get a feel of Mukai's strength, so getting in trouble with enemy nin served their objective well. Not to mention, this man had forced them to travel with little rest. If Shisui didn't know better, he would suspect this man was purposely trying to make them tired. We're here. Mukai announced grumpily. Now, let's wait for our mission objective to arrive. The same mission objective that would not be there until noon, which was over half a day from now. At least now they could recover some of their stamina, not much, but some. At times like this, they really envied Naruto's tireless stamina. Back with Naruto and Kurama. It was a long wait, and Naruto was worried for Itachi's and Shisui's stamina. He didn't know if it was just Itachi and Shisui, but it seemed in general, that stamina was not the Uchiha's strongest point. Naruto hoped their exhaustion was limited to Mukai being a difficult team leader, and not a convoluted plot to tire them out. Oi, Naruto, a lot of shinobi are coming towards this direction. Naruto winced, they're faster than scheduled. It was a good thing they rushed to this place as planned, but he was unsure that if things were to get ugly, his team would get away unscathed. For now, he had to keep an eye on them. It was hard to gauge his distance to Mukai's team. He had to be close enough to give assistance if needed, but far enough so Mukai wouldn't be able to detect him. Bad day or not, Naruto was not going to underestimate a jonin who made it to his 30s. He is just trash. Trash that has lived longer than any of us, excluding you, not to mention that he's a ninja with more experience than my entire team combined. Naruto pointed out before he hushed Kurama. SHH. The Suna and Kiri team are here. Why me? Naruto ignored Kurama, as now he was torn, a little, a lot. Who should I pay attention to? Suna and Kiri or Mukai? Naruto, you do a lot of things at the same time in a daily basis, yet you're conflicted about this. Kurama pointed out his idiocy. Naruto blushed a deep shade of red at the reminder, right. How could I forget? Because you're an idiot. Right, what will I do without you? Oh, the great Kyuubi no Yuko. Naruto deadpanned in his mind, Kurama snorted in return. Oh, it's a good chance to try that. He closed his eyes, hands forming a clone seal. Slow and steady, he let his chakra flow, imagining his chakra constructing the clone at a much slower pace than usual. Like blowing a balloon slowly but steadily, instead of blowing it in one deep breath like usual. He cracked one eye open to see a faint outline of his form. Like a ghost that slowly materialized until it became as solid as he was. Way. I did it. He did a mental happy dance. No popping sound. No chakra smoke. A perfect Kage Bunshin for espionage. He had been practicing this for ages, and even then he could one clone, slowly. But now, he didn't have to worry about the noise or burst of chakra alerting the people of his presence. It was pretty close to perfection, if he could say so himself. Congrats, idiotic vessel of mine, may I direct your attention back to your important mission? Kurama asked in a polite tone that just screamed sarcasm. Naruto and his clone looked sheepish as they split their attention to each group. Mukai, Itachi, and Shisui were laying low on the top of a cliff, spying on the meeting beneath them. The Tsunakiri meeting was still ongoing. It appeared they were exchanging some sort of code. Does this mean Suna is going rogue on your village? Kurama sounded oddly curious. Naruto shrugged, not really, we're allied to Suna but we have no right to stop them from allying themselves to Kiri, unless this alliance is for turning on us. Kurama snorted, so tell me Naruto, which do you think is the key to peace, love, or power? Which choice would provide your village with enough comfort to be at ease with their supposed allies without having to spy for signs of betrayal? 6-7. The blonde didn't take his eyes off of his target as he answered, you're more talkative than usual, Kurama, but I don't dislike that. Kurama was talking to him on the Biju's own discretion. Are you repeating your father's words to Azura and Indra? Just answer the question. I am 9, even if I am mentally older. I don't think I am arrogant enough to claim that I know better than Rakuta-senin. No matter what Kurama thought of humans in general. Itachi, Shisui, and I wish for peace, we have seen war and so we long for unrealistic serenity. Even so, we're still walking blind down this path to peace with no way of knowing whether we're right or wrong. Personally, however, I think Azura's and Indra's answer to his question, while not totally wrong, is very naive. Naruto told Kurama bluntly, ignoring the Biju's snicker that Naruto had the audacity to call the sage's sons naive. Power gives you the authority to lead most of the time, and it's in human nature to follow a strong leader. However, power can only get you so far. It can't solve every problem, and in history, leaders with an iron fist had always fallen, either by assassination or during war they started themselves. There were always ways to get around power. And with just love, hatred will follow, no matter how strong it may be. And without power in this cruel world, you will achieve nothing. You can't protect anyone with mere feelings, but it's the strongest source of power there is. If an absolute truth exists in this world, that would be it. That's why shinobi exist. Because we love, we wish to protect, and that's why we want power. Kurama snorted, when you say it like that, Indra and Azura really do sound naive. In the end, love and power were just two parts of the same answer. Ninjuya was corrupted by humans for the very same reason, because they needed power to protect those they love. Right, and that's why those shinobi are down there, he replied. They might be our enemies, but do I hate them? I don't. I can't hate them. Like how his father never hated his enemies despite the fact that he slaughtered hundreds of them during the Third Shinobi War. If I do, it would be over something personal. Like if they harmed his friends. Heh. I have to admit that blunt honesty of yours is why you're better than most humans in my opinion. You don't claim you have higher virtue than your kin. Naruto resisted his urge to tease Kurama for his rare honesty, and instead, focused on the exchange of scrolls between Kiri and Suna. In his mind, he already formulated a plan. Whatever the team found about this alliance from closer inspection, Konoha would most likely be interested in what Suna and Kiri were up to, so, they would have to ambush either team and take a peek at the scroll, make a copy, and allow both teams to go on their merry way. There was a good reason why Itachi and Shisui were on this mission, enough for Mukai to not get suspicious. Naruto, they're busted. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw one of the Kiri-nin, the captain, started to look around before alerting his comrades of Team Mukai's presence. Damn it! How did they? That Mukai guy reeks of alcohol and smoke. Of course, they would notice sooner or later. Damn it! The Kiri and Suna teams split up. Suna went after Mukai's team while the Kiri-nin fled the scene. This was close to Kaze no Kuni's border, so it was no wonder the one pursuing their spy was the Suna team, but was that the real reason? Naruto looked back and forth between Suna and Kiri, one headed east while the other north. He made up his mind and activated Hikau no Fun to get ahead of the Suna-nin and Mukai's team, while he left his clone to pursue the Kiri-nin. Konoha, Ceiling Tower. And that's how you have come to this conclusion. Hakure exclaimed in disbelief. Hyoshao nodded frantically, the only one in a pinch over an unknown intruder waltzing in and out of Konoha is us and the Uchiha clan. Even the barrier team is off of the hook because they did detect the intruder, so it's our fault that the intruder had gotten in and the Uchiha's fault that the culprit wasn't caught. He pointed out. In short, the barrier team did their job while the Uchiha and the tower did not. Thank you for your input. Hakure thanked his subordinates before dismissing the brown-haired seal master. Now, please go back to KMPF's HQ and inform the others that we're thinking of a solution, so just act like nothing unusual. Roger, old man Hakure. Takigawa Hyoshao saluted before he made his way out of Hakure's office. Hakure glanced at Fugaku, who was sitting across his seat. The last time Hakure checked, the Uchiha didn't have that many wrinkles on his face, and said, "Both of us find ourselves and our subordinates in quite a predicament, don't you think so? Fugaku-kun." Fugaku didn't even bother to protest because, of course, he would forever be Fugaku-kun to Hakure. Indeed. They agreed to have a meeting in the tower simply because the sealing division had better security, thus keeping outsiders from spying on them. It's one thing after another, and just after KMPF is slowly adapting to recruiting personnel from the sealing division. How they could trust taking recruits from Konoha now, assuming that there would even be anyone interested in joining, should they have the opportunity. Hakure sighed, "Stop pinching the bridge of your nose, it's not going to help our headache." Fugaku stopped, sighing. "What are we going to do now? I can already imagine the elders going on stride about that again. My side is in a slightly better condition, but we're dissatisfied with Konoha all the same, and Danzo will treat us all the same." He made a scissoring move with his fingers. "That man will try to prune us or something, he would take Konoha's tree metaphor to new heights, I swear." The Uchiha clan head snorted, "Indeed, and when Itachi, Shisui and Naruto are not in Konoha. I would like to spare them as much as I could from this stupidity over our pride. I may be a proud Uchiha, but I know our limits. It will bring us more harm than good if we prolong our isolation from Konoha. The only reason I would ever consider that is because between picking a fight with my own family and my village, I will choose the latter." Hakure gave the younger man a sympathetic look. "Well, you're right, family is everything, seriously. Why are the people we lead so blind? It's as if they refuse to see the bigger picture. I guess that's why we're the ones who lead our people, while I still wish they would take a hint. What we dream to be our ideal life is just a pipe dream if we don't change ourselves. Uzushiagakuer is no more, we can't go home to a ruin, our young master was born here and half of his legacy belongs here. He was not going anywhere, and as much as they hated it here, they need Konoha as protection. Even though my generation and Shians remember Uzushiagakuer, our children don't. What they know of our former home is just a memory, and he was afraid they would become delusional of their former home." Fugaku nodded sadly. "What our clan thinks is ideal is not realistic either. We might be able to take the Sandaime down, but what about the rest of Konoha? What about our children? Then the rest of Konoha's enemy that's still sharpening their kunai out there? Right, which is why we have to focus on the present." The Uchiha clan head inhaled deeply and said the one thing Hakure knew was exactly what he thought too. "What are we going to do about this? Capture the intruder, I suppose, but we've been trying exactly for that, for 3 days. Which was pretty long considering they detected the intruder entering a couple of times, but they couldn't even catch a glimpse of the perpetrator. Not to mention they couldn't find anything wrong with the barrier. Not to mention just now. I was called to the Hokage office, and Kakoi was there." Suddenly Fugaku had a very bad feeling about where this conversation was heading to, especially if the leader of the barrier team was involved. And he said, "Lately, in the several instances of an intruder bypassing the Konoha barrier system, they were around the Uchiha clan district." Fugaku scowled. "Why don't they just point a bigger finger at us and be done with it?" He slammed his fist on the table in anger. "I know, Fugaku-kun. I know, this is a hard time for all of us. Though the fact that I was informed means they still trust me at least. That was not so comforting, but it was still something. Still, we have to calm down our people first, rushing ahead will just lead us into Danzu's trap." "Danzu? Of course. What does that man wants from us anyways? He is so fixated on us, it's unnerving." Uchiha's pride or not, getting unnerved by Danzo was nothing to be ashamed of in Fugaku's book. If he was not so desperate to get his son a place in Konoha's ranks, he would have kept Itachi and Shisui as far away as he could from Danzo. He hated how that man looked at his son and nephew. He hadn't been in the same room as the man with Naruto around, but Fugaku was sure Danzo wouldn't look any differently at his Uzumaki nephew. Hakurei sighed, power, that's all he sees in us, the Uchiha's Dojutsu and our seals. Fugaku contemplated for a moment, between us, I believe we have a pretty good chance of getting rid of him. Honestly, I alone stand a good chance myself. The problem with Danzo is not getting rid of him, it's the aftermath once he is out of the picture. Hakurei pointed out. I don't think I can put it past Danzo to not bring his closet full of skeletons with him to his grave. The Uchiha sighed, right, but Hakurei-san, let me tell you this. If by chance, we're all going down because of his scheme, promise me that one of us will live long enough to drag that bastard down to hell, consequences be damned. Deal. He agreed wholeheartedly, so before we get off the topic, the question of the year, what are we going to do to get us out of this mess? Good question. Both of them hung their heads in despair. Kawa no Kuni. The problem with a group of elite shinobi on the run back to their home was that their alertness took a sharp dip. Just because they were the ones being pursued, they believed that they had chances to spring up a trap and ambush the opposite forces, not the other way around. It was simple math and Naruto had to say he couldn't fault them for believing that. Because most shinobi didn't have a way to leap and cover miles in an instant. He was still perfecting Haikau no Fun for real flight, but the weather wasn't windy today, so for once luck was on his side. The Kirinin didn't have a Jujutsu to detect sealing formulas on the clearing they came across. Nor did they have the patience or well-needed time. Believing that they got a good head start from their pursuers, they didn't care to watch their steps closely. Gah! My legs! I can't move them. Damn it! Naruto's lips trembled. It never failed to amuse him how a trap as simple as the Gomen Jimen no Fun could catch even elite shinobi if they were unaware of the trick behind the seal. High-ranked shinobi had already trained their body to enhance speed and strength with chakra. It was almost as natural as breathing to them, so their confusion was a small wonder. They were confused as to how such a thing had been able to glue them to the ground. The truth was simple, really. The seal just forced the chakra they emitted to stick to a specific spot, thus restraining their movement along with their chakra. A chakra chain shot from his sleeve and ripped the scroll holster from the Kiri captain's waist. The man roared for it. The scroll. Summoning another batch of clones, he duplicated the scroll. Naruto ordered the clones to split up as a precaution. After his clones were far enough, the remaining Naruto contemplated on what he was going to do with these Kirinin. He didn't want to kill them, if possible, and even if they were trapped now, going out there to kill them in person would be a bad idea. Any careless action would be risking the exposure of Konoha as the one who sabotaged their mission. He was also skeptical of how long Gomen Jimen no Fun could hold them to their spots. Having decided, his hands clasped before forming 3 hand seals in succession. Ox rightward arrow, snake rightward arrow, ram. It was a good thing there was a sun shower this morning. Kirigaku no Jutsu. It was a simple technique with only 3 hand seals. While his mastery over the water element was barely decent, this technique didn't require much of it. Though he was sure the Kiri team was not going to appreciate the irony. He called another batch of clones and distributed a particular elemental seal tag, quickly erecting a barrier before digging a foxhole to protect himself with a simple seal that softened the soil like Moyagaku no Jutsu. Kirigaku no Jutsu. An indignant shout came from the general direction of the Kiri team. How dare dash! They were cut off by an electric current that ran through the thick mist, screaming in pain before they collapsed, one by one, onto the ground. Their chakra became very still and Naruto knew they were out cold. As he had learned from his former master Aizen and Root Junior squad, Suten plus Raiden was a bitch. Even for ninjas with high pain tolerance, staying conscious against it was hard, to say the least. Now that I've completely disabled them, what should I do next? He wondered to himself. I am already low on chakra too. Chasing them with Haikau no Fun and setting a large Gomen no Jimen Fun took a lot from him. He frowned when he poked out his head to count. He didn't misread the chakra signatures. The Kiri team was short 1 3-man cell. I missed 1 team. This is the shortest route back to Mizu no Kuni and the scroll was with them. If they wanted to split up to confuse their pursuer, they should split into smaller teams. With the Suna team going after the Konoha team, they were the larger team, they wouldn't pull this kind of stunt J8. Instead, they would have fought him head-on. So that leaves one possibility. They went to assist the Suna team in catching the Konoha team. Or perhaps, I should return to the Origi. He stopped in his tracks as someone suddenly appeared and that chakra, where? He closed his eyes and loosened the seal on the Satori. Frowning at what he just sensed, Whose thoughts are? His eyes went wide in shock when all of a sudden, a gloved hand burst through his chest. Time seemed to slow to a stop, and with the last little bit of power he had left, he turned around and saw a masked face phasing through the tree he had been leaning on. A ghost. Poof. The clone disappeared with a burst of chakra smoke, and the masked man sighed. Yatter, yatter. I guessed wrong. The original is the one chasing after the Suna and Konoha team. He glanced at the unconscious Kirin. Still, for him to take down a group of Kiri elites so easily. Granted, the clone won not in a battle of skill, but in wits. It was still a very impressive feat for a sheltered Jinchuriki. At this rate, perhaps allowing him to live was going to be a hindrance in the long run. To wait for the Kyuubi to reform might be a better plan. That was what he planned with Yagura, stir a civil war and get the Yondaime Mizukage naturally killed, and wait for the Sanba to reform, or he escaped from the seal and killed Yagura. He was not picky in which order his puppet died. As for Uzumaki Naruto. No, don't. Shisui and Itachi are. Shut up. He will die anyway, so what if those two? Don't inflict the same pain to them. Please. It doesn't matter. Once-tsuki no mi. Spare them, as long as we could. The world is not that kind to us, to Uchiha. And that's why, be kind to them now, for now. He looked at the general direction where the Suna and Konoha teams went off to inside. He had been patient for years, he could afford letting his cousins keep the Yondaime's son for a little longer. Yes. Let them be. After all, the longer their bond lasts, the greater the pain when they lose him. Then Shisui and Itachi would understand the real pain, the curse of their clan. Back with Itachi and Shisui, 5 minutes ago. I told you so wouldn't be appropriate in this situation, but Shisui was tempted to say it. Because, no self-respecting ninja would ever drink alcohol and smoke before a stealth mission and fuck the mission over 6 ways to Tuesday, like Mukai Ko Hinata did. Shisui was also sure that the Hyuga clan wouldn't want anything to do with the bastard, they would be ashamed of him. Shisui had decided, traitor or not, Mukai Ko Hinata would pay dearly as soon as they were out of this mess. After this, Itachi grunted from his left, eyes straight at Mukai Ko Hinata, who was running a few steps ahead of them. Itachi agreed with him, wonderful. Though Naruto, who sometimes was even more of a sticker to rules than Itachi, might disagree. Mukai-san, the Suna team is gaining on us. Shall we confront them? He wanted to slap himself for abiding to seniority, but they had a cover to keep. Mukai snorted, I suppose we should. On paper, Suna is one of our allies, but they did pull this kind of shit. I imagine Hokage-sama would want to keep the alliance so --. He looked at their direction, inclining his head so they could see his left profile. Their eyes widened when they saw the distinctive bulging blood vessels around Mukai's left eye, the all-seeing eye of the Hyuga clan, Byakugan. This is not included in his profile. Shisui sweated a little. While the Byakugan didn't mean the end of the world, he was not prepared to kill a grown-up Jonin with the Byakugan. Simply because now he was unsure whether Mukai was completely without ties to the Hyuga. Depending on the situation, we should change plans from assassination to capture. Itachi concluded, especially considering the situation they were in now, they needed more evidence to brand Mukai as a traitor, condemning evidence, or it would get ugly with the Hyuga later. They didn't need their relationship with the Hyugas to get any worse. Be my back UPS, but don't interfere unless I ask for your help, I alone am enough. Huh? Say what? With Naruto and Kurama. The blonde frowned when he at last caught up with the Konoha and Suna teams, suppressing his chakra to avoid attention. Mukai Ko Hinata was charging head-on by himself while Itachi and Shisui hung back. They still assisted Mukai from time to time, but it was obvious Mukai was taking the Suna team head-on mostly by himself. He is winning though. Mukai Ko Hinata was stronger than expected, and the variation of Gyuken he was notorious for was formidable as well. Naruto was not familiar of the Hyuga's katas. He knew how the Gyuken works, but in terms of the kata, he only knew the skin of it. He has the Byakugan, Hamura's eyes, don't you think you're too close? Kurama pointed out. I suppose I am alright at this distance. Shisui and Itachi have experience with the Byakugan. And the Hyuga lost badly against them. That absolute 360-degree field of vision, in Shisui's words, is a bluff. Even though their range is that wide, they can't concentrate on everything they see. He is in the middle of an intense fight, and the barrier I put up distorts his perception enough that, unless he concentrates on me, it's unlikely he can spot me. So as long as Naruto keep his head down, Mukai won't notice him. Kurama snickered, as expected of my vessel, so sly, though we don't have much time to waste dawdling. So, are you going to kill this smelly bastard or not? Naruto narrowed his eyes, sensing 3 new chakra signatures. We will find out soon enough. Hopefully as soon as possible, because he felt wary to stay in the open with that masked man nearby. Show your colors, Mukai Ko Hinata, show us you're loyal, if not. Back with Uchiha cousins. He, at last, defeated 20 Suna shinobi by himself, Shisui thought with no little amount of disbelief. It was quite a feat for someone who just recovered from a hangover. Mukai Ko Hinata was strong, there was no doubt he was. However, that power, does it belong to Konoha or? Shisui and Itachi briefly exchanged glances, the older Uchiha stepping forward towards the presumed leader of the Sunanin who was on the ground, while the other were keeping an eye on Mukai. Shisui narrowed his eyes at the back pouch on his waist where the Jonin kept the scroll from Kiri, and reached out to take the scroll. Oi, Uchiha! What do you think you're doing? Came Mukai's haughty voice. Shisui trusted Itachi to keep an eye on Mukai while he had his back turned, taking the scroll he was after from the dead shinobi. Taking the scroll they had exchanged with Kiri. Hokage-sama would like to take a look at what Suna is up to, I believe. It was foolish to turn your back on a potential enemy, but Shisui was testing Mukai. Itachi didn't take his eyes off of Mukai as he subtly approached a kneeling Shisui. Shisui was about to open the scroll when Mukai stopped him. Hands off of that scroll, kid, you don't have enough clearance to look at it. The Shunshin expert beamed, I am just curious. Besides, I believe Hokage-sama said nothing in our briefing about not looking. His finger still glued on the edge of the scroll. I warn you, Uchiha. He hissed, hands off. Shisui hummed, by the way, Mukai-san. I am curious about why you are being so brutal with these guys. He trailed off, pointedly ignoring the Jounin's scowl. I believe in our briefing we were ordered to spy on this meeting, sabotage them and find out what they're planning. Shisui cupped his chin, when they pursued us, the correct course of action according to our mission was to prepare a trap to subdue them, avoiding casualties while keeping our cover. Mukai sneered, getting rid of them is easier. But if a large team like this just disappeared with no news, no matter how good we are at covering our tracks, Suna will send their shinobi to investigate these guys' disappearance. He pointed out cheerfully, then we risk our alliance with Suna if they start to suspect Konoha, and, by law, Konoha have no right to interfere unless this alliance between Suna and Kiri is against Konoha. Itachi continued. An alliance that's not with us will be against us, brat. Shisui snorted, the fact remains that we will be the ones at fault and we can't claim innocence since we acted on unfounded suspicions. At last, he turned around, facing Mukai head-on. In the end, Mukai-san, whatever there is inside this scroll, this mission has done more harm than good for Konoha. Because Kawa no Kuni ISS between Hai no Kuni and Kaze no Kuni, whether or not they suspect Konoha, Suna would ask questions. Bah, you're just theorizing, don't make a fuss over something so trivial. Oh, but we have to. After all, through the course of this mission, you Mukai-san, have been thoroughly sabotaging it. Care to explain? Mukai narrowed his eyes, what is there to explain exactly? I am just doing my job. You're a Jonin. Shisui pointed out. You don't get your rank by being a fool, and yet you have been playing a fool the whole time. I don't know if you're just an alcoholic, so you can't control yourself before an important mission, but... Shisui smirked, I never known anyone dumb enough to eliminate over 20 shinobi who belong to an allied village when the investigation is still ongoing, and we have confirmed nothing that could justify this action. Not only that, we're both shinin and you go off on your own against 20 elite shinobi of Suna, and not even once do you watch us out. Forjonin tried to sneak behind us with poison and you didn't even notice. If we were normal shinin, both of us would be dead by now. Mukai snorted, if you got killed, you would have no one but yourself to blame. The Uchiha narrowed his eyes, this is not the matter of competence. You're very close to deliberately endangering both your team and your village. Don't you think you will get away so easily, Mukai Kohinata-san? The distant relative of Hyuga scoffed, waving Shisui's warning dismissively. Whatever you say, Uchiha, all high and mighty because you have a clan to protect you. He sneered, you can complain once and you're safely inside Konoha's wall, but outside, I am your captain so hand over that scroll or dash. Oh, I don't think so Mukai-san. Shisui beamed in faked innocence, let me keep this, because after that stunt you pulled, I am not sure of its safety with you. Here, I'll give you some blackmail material on me so once we're safe and back in Konoha, you can complain all you want. Go ahead. Naruto would be so proud of him, he even handed Mukai a figurative olive branch. Itachi looked like he disagreed though, his face said Shisui was having too much fun with this mind game. Hand over that scroll, Uchiha. Or else. Mukai growled. Shisui pasted a look of mock horror, now you're threatening me. Are you sure? Seriously. Mukai had his Byakugan active and his face was red with anger. It seems you're not a cooperative subordinate, well. I lost my patience due to your disrespect and it's time I can quell some. Shisui hummed, neither he nor Itachi were surprised when 3 shinobi wearing Kiri's Umbu mask appeared via Shushin. The black in the Uchiha's eyes faded to red and 3 Tomo swam in a pool of red. Well, what does this mean, Mukai-san? You have friends from Kiri. Itachi shunshined to his side, Sherry-non eyes narrowed at the team from Kiri. Or perhaps, you have betrayed us for Kiri, Mukai-san. He sneered, I betrayed no one, it's Konoha that betrayed me first so I took my loyalty to a worthier master. Betrayed you first? Shisui echoed in an incredulous tone. I worked hard to get a spot in Umbu, I am strong enough to be an Umbu captain but, the higher-ups favor shinobi with pedigree like Hatake Kakashi and Hyuga main family members. I am as strong as they are but I am not given the same privileges. I was even forced to turn in my mask. Itachi sighed inwardly, while thinking that Naruto was so right about betrayal being a one-way street. Considering how far you have fallen, I can't say Hokage-sama's decision is wrong. If your loyalty is measured by promotion and rank, you're not a true Konoha shinobi, after all, being a shinobi is not a job but a way of life. Shisui added. How disappointing Mukai-san. He put the unopened scroll to his pouch. I have hoped we could reason with you. So Konoha knows I am a spy. He scoffed, a shame, I like my job as a spy but if I go back to Kiri with your heads, a generous reward awaits me from Mizukage-sama. Shisui smirked, eyes closed. Truly a shame, Mukai-san. Flash. A bright light erupted from above and Mukai, who had his Byakugan activated, was blinded in an instant, howling in pain, while the other Kiri-nin, although blinded, were not in as much pain as Mukai. They sensed their enemy move and swung their blades in hopes to stall until they regained their sight. Seconds passed but they could feel that the chakra flare being emitted by the flash tag had yet to cease, which was an abnormal occurrence as usually flash bombs didn't last this long. They were Jonin so they could detect incoming projectiles from sound and vibrations in the air. However, it took all their concentration to do so, and when they were focused on dodging kunai and shurikens, they didn't notice a chakra construct in the form of a chain sneak in, wrapping around them like a cobra and taking them captive. Iwaa! One by one, the Kiri-nin were dragged to the ground, Mukai was no exception, as the man hit the ground face first. Shisui opened his eyes, blinking because even though he had his eyes closed, the flash tag was brighter than normal so he was seeing a few spots. You took your sweet time, Naruto. Naruto glowered at Shisui from beneath his mask, excuse me if I didn't want to interrupt your one-man show. Mukai opened his eyes, They were throbbing painfully, but he ignored it because he had no plan to let himself be under their mercy. He knew what had befell his comrades, so he kept his face down to avoid looking at the Sharingan. His Byakugan was still blurry, but he was sure what chained him was a chakra construct. Fool! Anything made of chakra is powerless against. Much to his shock, the chakra chain didn't disperse even though he released a pulse of chakra from his whole body to disturb the construct. Why won't this chain break? Itachi narrowed his eyes at Mukai. A shame, really. You're not a Hyuga and yet you're no less skilled than any Hyuga clansman in my eyes, Mukai-san. If Mukai had been a pure-blooded Hyuga, the clan would have hailed him as one of their best. And to answer your question, Naruto trailed off. Unfortunately, the Kongo Fusa is not a normal chakra construct. If a Biju can't break it, neither can you. Naruto stated coldly before one more chain wrapped around Mukai's head, forcing him to look up, thus exposing himself to two pairs of Sharingan eyes. He closed his eyes stubbornly, unwilling to succumb to the Sharingan. Then he felt cold metal on his neck. Choose, it's either surrender quietly or we will slit your neck right here. Mukai reluctantly opened his eyes and let himself fall to the Sharingan's mercy. Damn it! He cursed weakly before his eyes rolled back and he was out cold. Naruto eyed the unconscious traitor with more trepidation than relief. The mission was to kill him, but Mukai was more useful alive than dead, right? They will find out what's up with Kiri, even though he was sure Danzo already knows, but the traitor would be a hindrance to bring back home and adding these three Kirin in to boot. Badump. Naruto? What's with that face? Shisui asked. I finished sealing the corpse and I have sent a clone to the Kiri team you left behind to clean up after you. In which Shisui's clone was going to put them under genjutsu and put a false memory before sending them off back to Mizu no Kuni. A rush of memories from his clone hit him and his face paled. Run. He declared, we have to get away, my clone was destroyed and dash. Itachi looked at him with worry. Naruto, calm down, what hap dash? As one they looked down, just in time to see the chained head of Mukai Ko Hinata rolled off of his body. And the head stared back at them lifelessly. There was no emotion in his eyes, as if he was still deep in Shisui's illusion. Huh. Naruto reacted as he, Itachi and Shisui dashed forward while their three hostages were killed swiftly with a slash on their jugulars. He was moving as fast as he could, but Naruto could tell his left hand that was holding the chain connected to the three recently dead hostages was wet with blood. He could see Itachi and Shisui were just as shocked as he was. It was as plain as the day that they were almost killed but spared at the last moment. Then a ghost appeared, seemingly emerged from the ground. He had shoulder-length shaggy hair, and dressed in black from head to toe, leaving almost no skin exposed. On his right hand was a Kama Itachi, with a chain connected to his left. The blade was soaked in blood. But what drew their attention the most was the ominous orange mask he wore, with a single eye hole that didn't hide his lone Sharingan eye from the world. You. The Uchiha from 9 years ago, Uchiha Madara. Bonus, Naruto, Kurama's favorite host. Maybe. Uzumaki Mito was a self-righteous bitch who claimed his power was a source of calamity, so he had to be sealed within her. Kurama was blinded with rage back then, but now he wished he could call Mito out on her hypocrisy. Did she forget whose family feud Kurama was dragged into? As much as Kurama hated to call himself a victim, after all that he had been through, it was an apt label. After all, he wasn't helping Madara out of his own free will. He was forced out of his calm dwelling to aid their stupid fight. Did he get the apology that he so desperately deserved? No, instead of an apology, he was imprisoned unjustly, and Mito and Hashirama had the gall to make it sound as if they had done the world a favor. Unlike that drunk Tanuki, he never attacked humans unprovoked. Not because he liked them, but after Indra and Ajura, he and his siblings, the dumb Tanuki aside, decided to stay away from humans as a whole to save themselves trouble. Then Mito and Hashirama went out of their way to gather all the Biju like they were some collectible merchandise. As if the wound to their pride was not deep enough, the bastard couple dared to claim it was for their father's dream. Peace. His next host was only slightly less guilty than Mito because she was just inheriting the job as his vessel. But that didn't make Kurama hate Kushina any less, especially since she took Mito's advice to fill herself with love to deal with his hatred. If there was anything he could agree with Kushina on, it was that neither of them got a good deal out of this accursed bond. That being said, it still got on his nerves how Kushina treated her Jinchuriki status as some sort of sacred duty. Kurama was nice enough to give her and her husband a quick death before getting sealed into his next host. He didn't have high hopes when he got stuck in Uzumaki Naruto either. However, after acquainting himself with the boy, Kurama could say at last he got a better deal. At least Naruto was not a self-righteous Uzumaki who thought Kurama deserved to get stuck in this hellhole like the previous two and felt guilty for his fate. Kurama didn't want sympathy, of course. He was the mighty Kyuubi who didn't need pity, but it was considerably a step up, as his current host put some effort to make this accursed bond between Biju and Jinchuriki more bearable. Though sometimes, Kurama wished Naruto didn't work so hard to make their living arrangement better. Such as, don't decor this place. Let this cell be dreary and wet for all I care, but don't paint the bar orange. It's a very lively color, and to be honest I don't like this sewer either. There must be something wrong with my head and I'm fixing it. Stop. Seriously, he was happy enough that in this small cell he was free to move his limbs, unlike when he was stuck inside Kushina and Mito. As for the dreary sewer, the less said about it, the better. Kurama, what do you think about this seal to improve your lighting? Good morning, Furball. The sun is very nice, so I wonder if you feel it when I was sunbathing. Hey, I attuned the seal to my senses so you can taste the food I eat. Isn't ramen the best comfort food in the world? The synchronized senses were nice and all, but Kurama could live with not tasting human food, and he'd rather not have Naruto talking his ears off. He almost missed being ignored by his last two vessels, almost. Kurama, I feel sorry you're cooped up in there. Now what? He was almost tempted to sigh at his vessel. After years of living inside this boy, he learned to tolerate Naruto's antics, so he'd always listen first and scream later. As bizarre as it sounds, he had raised this boy since Naruto was 6. What brought this up? You see, it's been raining all week in Konoha, and Shisui says the cats kept by the Uchiha clan were going crazy because they weren't able to take a walk outside. Should he keep listening or should he scream at this numbskull now? They're tearing curtains and tatami apart, meowing non-stop. Shisui looks sleep-deprived because the granny next door keeps like a dozen of them. I am so sorry for not noticing sooner, so I'm thinking of a way to get your consciousness out from time to time from the seal. Naruto declared, a hint of guilt in his voice. He would like to remind Naruto that he was not a cat or dog, but he couldn't deny getting stuck here wasn't frustrating either. Besides, if Naruto was really going to give him some freedom, Kurama supposed he could swallow his pride just this once. Let's indulge this boy for now. It was not like Kurama was expecting anything. Or so Kurama thought. It's surprisingly simpler than I thought. Naruto was grinning from ear to ear. I just need to apply the same principles as the Kage Bunshin in this seal and bind it with our chakra, fooling my Jinchuriki seal, since the majority of your chakra stays within me while transporting your consciousness and some chakra to this clone. Looking at Naruto's beaming face, he had an urge to claw the brat. Clone, you said? He was looking at the mirror, trembling with fury and embarrassment at his reflection. Naruto and his teammates had the decency to look embarrassed. Well, at first I thought that I could just lend you a clone of mine, but it's not a great idea to have one of me roaming with red eyes and claws around Konoha. So, the other idea is looking for another body, and with keeping your comfort in mind. We think this body that looks as close to your original is the best. Shisui beamed, and since it's his first time speaking to Kurama face to face, he was doing his best to give a good impression and hopefully making amends on behalf of his clan. We were torn between getting a monkey or a fox. It was a sad attempt at boot-palicking Kurama on Shisui's part. Monkey? How does he look like a monkey? True, his upper body was somewhat human or monkey-like in anatomy, but... Shisui, be quiet. Itachi was sure mentioning that they were looking for a monkey was not a good idea. Well, never mind. Naruto hastily added, we got a good deal from a hunter on our way back from the capital that he is going to sell this kit as a pet. Akari did his best to open and keep the chakra path in good condition, so how does it feel? Kurama snapped, I feel great in this stupid kit's body. The body he currently occupied was that of a fennec fox, a smaller species with a cat-like body and ears too big for its petite head. In short, It was a very cute and cuddly body unbefitting for the strongest Biju to reside in. Kurama? Is anything wrong? Everything. Whose idea was it to get me this fox body? It looks retarded with its big ears and small jaw. I look like a chihuahua. Shisui coughed and turned away, his face was red and his shoulders were shaking with mirth. Naruto averted his eyes guiltily. Among the game hunt we saw on sale, this fennec fox looked the closest to your original form. Actually, it was because this body looked the cutest, but he would be suicidal to say it to Kurama's furry face. But it works, right? I am the size of a house cat. Can't you get me a bigger body? At least one as big as a wolf. In this size, he could be trampled by accident. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly and clapped his hands together in an apologizing gesture. Sorry Kurama. But bear with this for a while, okay? And faster than Kurama could react, Naruto clasped a classy-looking necklace chain with a circle pendant, which was engraved with a seal on the back and the sealing tower's address on the front. I am not a pet. Kurama pounced but was easily caught by Naruto, who was holding his sides. It's just in case someone sees you. I also added a seal to hide your chakra signature so you can take a walk around the perimeter of the tower. Kurama stopped struggling. I can't even walk out of the barrier surrounding this place. Well. Konoha citizens have developed a dislike for foxes since that night. It would be fine if you avoid crowded places, but it's just safer around here. Naruto explained as he put Kurama down gently before idly holding up a morsel to his mouth. Kurama was about to protest, but he couldn't resist eating the offered morsel and finished it in a gulp. Naruto, you dash. Well, it's a fox after all, so ingrained instincts are kept. Even if you're in charge, you need to eat, drink and, well. He gestured towards the bowl of food and water by the door, then to a cat toilet full of sand. He even had to take a dump like a mortal. Cheer up Kurama. I will ask someone to install cat doors around the tower, and the weather is great today for a walk. You can even hunt some game. Of course, Naruto refrained from pointing out that with his tiny body, Kurama could hunt rodents at best. Kurama let his instinct took over and pounced at his insufferable host. The fresh air was good and all, but he was still holding on to Naruto's promised bigger and dignified body soon. And no matter what, he refused to eat fried tofu. Ever, asterisk. That's it for part 11. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.